Chapter 5180. That was Underground Passage. Yi-Ching Luo's starry pupils contracted slightly as she was shocked and pleasantly surprised. Behind her, a chilly voice broke her surprise. "Feng family's lass. What you trying to do?" That sinister, chilly voice seemed to be wrapped with the world's most intense malice. Yi-Ching Luo thought of her earlier actions as she turned her head away awkwardly. Long Ao's gaze was filled with ridicule and disdain as he stared at her open glower flame fan. Her stance was as though she was going to have a fight with him. Yi-Ching Luo's mind spun quickly, and just as Long Ao was about to open his mouth again, she cut off his word with a flowery smile. I'm feeling a little hot, so I'm fanning." Saying that, she waved the glower flame fan and fanned herself twice. Luckily, her weapon was a fan. If it was a huge machete, could it be that she had to explain that she was lifting weights? She simply didn't dare to think about it. Long Ao snorted coldly and couldn't be bothered to haggle with her. It better be like this. Finishing his words, he walked past Yi-Ching Luo and directly headed towards that underground passage. The pitch-black pit was pitch black as far as the eye could see. She could only vaguely see the long staircase, which was hidden in the darkness. Long Ao had already walked in. She had walked all the way here. Yi-Ching Luo naturally didn't have any hesitation. She lifted her feet and followed Long Ao in. The moment she stepped on the staircase, Yi-Ching Luo only felt a bone-piercing, dense yin-chi rushing towards her. This yin-chi, it was different from Long Ao's body. Long Ao's entire body was emitting a kind of extremely aggressive, malicious yin-chi, as if he wanted to kill her at any time. But this yin-chi was the kind of yin-chi that made one's hair stand on end from the depths of one's heart. It was as though someone was in the dark, eyeing her covetously. It made her hair stand on end. There was a feeling that her inner heart was being peeped at, whereas in front was a stretch of boundless darkness, a darkness without a single bit of light. Yi-Ching Luo could only rely on the sound of Long Ao's steps on the staircase to differentiate his position. "How did you know that there's an underground passage here?" Yi-Ching Luo followed her intuition and asked as she walked down. Long Ao was only 2 or 3 steps away from her. His voice seemed even more gloomy and cold in the darkness. "Do you think that I'm a fool like you? Do you think that you can't find a place even after looking for a long time? Have you forgotten why I became the one who opened the door of the divine emperor's tomb?" Yi Fuqian sneered without holding back. "For seal the entrance of the divine emperor's tomb and seal the aura of the tomb. As for Huang Wuyo, he was sealed here by Feng Ge. The reason why Feng Ge built the divine emperor's tomb here was to suppress Huang Wuyo. Therefore, how could Long Ao not know where Huang Wuyo was sealed?" She had asked a stupid question. "What do you want to do after you find the place of that monster?" Long Ao suddenly retracted his mocking attitude and asked in a casual manner. Yi-Ching Luo narrowed her eyes but didn't reply. Long Ao continued, "Don't tell me that you want to reseal that monster for your mother." "I can't." Yi-Ching Luo's brows rose. Long Ao didn't give her any face as he laughed out. "You weakling, I'm afraid you don't know that monster's ability. Just based on you, you want to seal that monster? Do you know that in order to kill him, your mother even sacrificed her life and only managed to seal him? Just based on you, I'm afraid even 10 lives aren't enough for you to play with." Chapter 5181. Long Aoyan's tone was filled with ridicule, even though she was in the dark. Yi-Ching Luo could feel Long Aoyan's contemptuous and ridiculing gaze. Yi-Ching Luo was calm and wasn't affected by Long Aoyan's ridicule. "How would I know if I don't try? So many years have passed, the seal should have loosened. I heard that the Dark Nether Palace, a force that has spread to all the major realms without anyone noticing, and has become a huge force, was founded by his divine sense." Yi-Ching Luo's eyes sunk when she mentioned the Palace of Darkness. Long Aoyan obviously sensed the change in her emotions as he sneered. "Do you think that the monster is suppressed by the seal now? You can take the opportunity to seal him again. I'll tell you this." Long Aoyan suddenly stopped in his tracks. In the dark, he accurately caught her wrist. That icy cold touch made Yi-Ching Luo shiver. She subconsciously wanted to shake his hand off. Long Out Yin's voice was deep, revealing some unknown ridicule. That monster, even if only one part of his consciousness is outside, to kill you, is as easy as flipping his palm. This sentence came out from Long Out Yin's mouth. Regarding Huang Wuyo's evaluation, it was indeed too high. After all, people like Long Out Yin rarely complimented others. To be praised by Long Out Yin, his ability was not to be belittled. But what did Long Out Yin's words mean by despising her? Did he look down on her? Don't think that you can surpass that woman just because you obtain the God Emperor's inheritance. Long Out Yin looked at her in disdain in the dark. That woman's ability. I'm afraid no one in this world can surpass her, if not because. When he said this, his tone turned cold, and he scoffed, full of disdain and ridicule. Yiqing Luo knew what Long Out Yin had not finished his sentence. Actually, speaking of, Feng Ji's ability was definitely above Huang Wuyo, to a level that no one could surpass. But Feng Gu still gave up her life in order to seal Huang Wuyo. All these, just because she was a woman. Because a woman's heart was soft. Because a woman, no matter how much hatred she had, she still loved that man. Because of love. That was why she paid with her life. Because he had sacrificed his life, the longing and worry for his daughter for 10,000 years had worn away all the love he had for her. In the end, it was because one had never loved and the other was deeply in love. That's why it ended up like this. Yiqing Luo's long eyelashes fluttered lightly. She slightly lowered her eyebrows, and a wisp of coldness flowed through her charming eyes. Her fair and delicate fingers slightly clenched. She said, "So, I will solve this problem for Mother." "Deal with it?" Long Out Yin sneered without giving him any face. "You? How do you plan to deal with it?" Yiqing Luo's vision drooped slightly as she stared at her own hands without blinking, although nothing could be seen in the darkness. However, her eyes were still bright, as if they had been washed. Little girl from the Feng family. Inheriting the Divine Emperor's inheritance doesn't mean you can inherit that woman's power. The Divine Emperor's inheritance is the Divine Emperor's inheritance. At most, it can only relieve some of the burden on your body, but everything still depends on your own strength. Long Out Yin laughed coldly. "You're a weakling. Even if you inherited the Divine Emperor's legacy, you're still a weakling." This point, Yiqing Luo understood clearly. The so-called Divine Emperor's inheritance only inherited the Divine Emperor's imprint. Trash 7th young mistress. Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Trash 7th young mistress. Lord Dizun, please be gentler with your love. Chapter 5182. Not inheriting all the previous God Emperor's power. The God Emperor's inheritance could not make her stronger out of nothing. After all, a person's strength depended on themselves. If Feng Gu really injected all his power into Yiqing Luo's body, Yiqing Luo might not be able to take it. Moreover, it was not the power that she had cultivated bit by bit. There was no way to fuse it with her body. She could only. Obtaining the God Emperor's inheritance was just an opportunity for Yiqing Luo to become stronger. With the God Emperor's inheritance, the burden that her body could take was far beyond her imagination. She could freely use the profound energy, absorb the Earth's spiritual chi, and advance to the profound grade. But to become stronger, there was still a process. Previously, her advancement speed was already considered too fast. This time, she inherited the God Emperor's inheritance. The profound energy surged within her body, and she could also touch the barrier to break through. But she was unable to advance, as if she was stuck at the same spot, unable to go up or down. Yiqing Luo wasn't sure what kind of feeling this was. Yiqing Luo's slender fair hand gently brushed past the azure dew bracelet on her wrist. The light in her eyes grew brighter, as if it could light up a star in the darkness. "I understand what you mean." She opened her mouth. Her voice was clear. In the spacious and long tunnel, there was a faint echo. Following that, she slowly brushed away Long Ao's hand. Her pink lips moved slightly again as she spat out, "But you forgot a very important point. I am my mother's daughter. Her gaze passed over Long Ao in the darkness and fell straight into the boundless darkness. Her voice was so chilly that there was no joy or anger. I am also the vessel that Huang Wuyo tried all ways and means to get. This sentence made Long Ao's ridiculing laughter stop. This was the truth. Yiqing Luo's existence. It was entirely Huang Wuyo who used the so-called forbidden technique to probe and design. Huang Wuyo tried all ways and means to come to Feng Ji's side, even sacrificing himself to deceive Feng Ji's feelings just to let Feng Ge give birth to his and Feng Ji's child. That, after Huang Wuyo probed, would be able to achieve all his ambitions. A child who possessed the one and only divine phoenix profound jade heart. A child who could nurture the divine phoenix profound jade heart until the divine phoenix profound jade heart's energy was maximized. Yes, Yiqing Luo, who had inherited Huang Wuyo and Feng Ji's powers. His true talent was not necessarily inferior to Feng Ge. He might even surpass Feng Ge. Of course, this was only a guess. The truth would depend on Yiqing Luo's choice. Yiqing Luo also understood this point. She knew that her talent was different from ordinary people. He also knew that he had a heavy responsibility. She could not stay out of this matter just because she could not deal with Huang Wuyo. It was not only because she had promised Feng Ge, or was it because it was also for her own sake. Even if she didn't look for Huang Wuyo would not let her off either. Between her and Huang Wuyo, eventually, one person would disappear from this world. It would be best if he could seal Huang Wuyo completely. But if it really came to that, she would not be soft-hearted. Long Ao remained silent for a while. Then, he coldly snorted and restrained his gloomy and cold aura. He flicked his sleeves and continued to walk forward. Suit yourself. Yiqing Luo confirmed Long Ao's direction in the dark based on the footsteps. She chuckled and followed him, saying, Lord Mystic Dragon will help me, right? Chapter 5183. Long Ao spurted out a cold stream from his nose as he gave a ridiculing laugh. He didn't give a direct answer, but that sneer seemed to be ridiculing Yiqing Luo's whims. Yiqing Luo didn't continue asking. She didn't know what had happened between Long Ao and her mother. But from Long Ao's words earlier, she could feel that Long Ao didn't hate her mother at all. More than that, there was a little care. Otherwise, based on Long Ao's character, Feng Ge had sealed him for thousands of years, and after he unlocked the seal, he actually didn't show any signs of rage. Although his words weren't respectful towards Feng Ge, it also contained zero disdain. But Yiqing Luo could obviously feel that Long Ao's words were disdainful. She wasn't sure. When she was dealing with Huang Wuyo and met with danger, would Long Ao help her? But she could be sure. At least Long Ao wouldn't stab her in the back. That was enough. Along the way, there were no more words. The two of them walked down in the darkness. Yiqing Luo had been calculating the time. About half an hour or so. Long Ao's footsteps halted. Yiqing Luo almost knocked into him. Long Ao had already retreated backwards, avoiding Yiqing Luo's touch. After Yiqing Luo stabilized her footsteps, she stretched out her legs and circled around the surroundings to ascertain that it was flat ground before she opened her mouth. We've reached. Do you think it's that simple? Long Ao sneered, not knowing if it was her misconception. Long Ao's voice was heavy with breathing, but it was only for a moment. Yiqing Luo walked towards him, trying to stretch out her hand to grab him. Long Ao retreated backwards once again. So scared that your legs are soft and you still need this seat to support you? He sneered coldly. If you're afraid, then scram back now. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips, and suddenly her fingertips pressed on the profound phoenix ring. I remember, I have a luminous pearl in my realm ring. I'll take it out first. If you want to die, then take it out. Long Ao's gloomy, deep voice was like an icy chill, eroding Yiqing Luo's eardrums. This seat won't save you. Yiqing Luo's actions paused. Long Ao said in a mocking tone, This is the place of that monster. You took the luminous pearl because you were afraid that he would not know. Did you come to find him? Yiqing Luo's slender fingers tightened and clenched again. He found his voice after a long while. Then he said in a slightly hoarse voice, Long Ao, your voice is somewhat wrong. Long Ao's breathing slightly froze. Soon after, he laughed mockingly. What's wrong with my voice? I'm afraid you've been scared out of your wits, and your mind isn't clear, right? He seemed to be impatient and couldn't be bothered with Yiqing Luo's mental state as he walked forward. If you want to find that monster, then follow me. Don't mess around with other messy things. What else was Yiqing Luo thinking about? However, Long Ao's pace was extremely fast. Listening to the sound of his footsteps, it seemed that he was quite a distance away from her. She could only suppress the restlessness in her heart and chase after him. He had barely taken 2 steps. Suddenly, in the underground tunnel, a gust of extremely cold hurricane surged, rushing so hard that Yiqing Luo shut her eyes as she subconsciously raised her hand to cover her face. That gust of extremely cold, gloomy, and strange aura scuttled up from the bottom of Yiqing Luo's feet. The majestic and vast profound energy confined her. We've been discovered by that monster. In front, Long Ao's angry voice was heard. This time, Yiqing Luo didn't hear wrongly. His voice was filled with suppressed panting, as though he was restraining something. Chapter 5184. Long Ao. Yiqing Luo had just opened her mouth when a gust of biting cold, inchi rushed into her mouth. The surrounding profound light was filled with a biting cold, murderous intent. The inchi in the surroundings seemed to have gathered together. She was totally unable to move and could only allow that inchi to spread throughout her limbs and bones. Slap! A slap landed on her back. That slap wasn't considered heavy, but it wasn't light either. It made Yiqing Luo feel a stinging pain. Are you really that girl's daughter? Why are you so stupid? A hand clasped her wrist. Following that, there was a strong suction force that pulled her out of the inchi's restraint. Which was that slap? It dispersed the inchi that was running around in his body. The pitch-black tunnel. The next moment, it became bright. Yiqing Luo's eyes were stimulated so much that she closed her eyes. When she opened her eyes again, she saw a handsome man dressed in black standing 5 steps in front of her. That figure tall and slender. That face handsome and imposing. On the surface, he gave off the feeling of a delicate scholar. But between his brows, there was a treacherous, sinister aura. Yiqing Luo only needed one look to recognize him. Huang Wuyo. No. To be more precise, this was Huang Wuyo's consciousness. Previously at the Emperor God's tomb, that wisp of Huang Wuyo's consciousness had been crushed by her. She didn't expect that in such a short period of time, Huang Wuyo could split out another wisp of consciousness. And this Huang Wuyo in front of her, obviously compared to the Huang Wuyo she met in the Emperor God's tomb, his aura was much stronger. Was it because... was this his territory? The consciousness that Huang Wuyo split out wasn't Huang Wuyo, but it was indeed Huang Wuyo. Whatever the consciousness sensed, Huang Wuyo's sealed body could feel it. And like earlier, when Yiqing Luo crushed that wisp of consciousness to Huang Wuyo, it was a heavy blow. My dear daughter, you miss your father already? Huang Wuyo's lips curled into a sinister smile. That smile didn't reach his eyes at all. That pair of eyes that seemed to be so cold that there was not the slightest bit of warmth made people shudder. Yiqing Luo stared at Huang Wuyo as her pupils contracted slightly. You're not worthy. Not worthy to call her daughter. He didn't deserve the sacred title of daddy. Huang Wuyo did not get angry. Instead, the smile on his lips grew wider, and the cold aura he exuded became stronger. No matter how unwilling you are to admit it, your father is still your father. His black robe fluttered despite the lack of wind. Mysterious inchi lingered around his body, forming a black oval protective shield that enveloped him. She only met his gaze. Yiqing Luo's hands and feet turned cold. She pursed her lips, shifted her gaze, and looked in the direction of Long Ao. Long Ao. Her words stopped at the tip of her lips. Beside her, Long Ao, who was originally filled with ruthlessness and murderous intent, was lightly panting at this moment. He stood not far behind her on her left side. That black brocade robe was already covered in blood. His entire body was covered with scars. Even his face, which was half covered in scales and half handsome, had a few scratches. Yiqing Luo's throat tightened. How did you? No wonder, till the end, Long Ao didn't say a single word. No wonder, after hearing Long Ao's voice, she felt strange. No wonder, Long Ao didn't allow her to get close, and didn't allow her to touch him. The injuries on Long Ao's body were obviously new. Were the injuries he got when he walked down that tunnel. Chapter 5185. Long Aoyan's face was dark and cold. The murderous look in his eyes was extremely obvious. He raised his hand and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Drops of blood. Chapter 5186. The Grave of Huang Wuyo. 8. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 5186. Not waiting for Long Ao to flare up. Yiqing Luo had already raised her eyes. Her long and narrow eyes were filled with ridicule and ridicule. She looked at Huang Wuyo. Her tone was slightly cold, without much emotion. Palace of Darkness. The real Palace Lord. Why do I feel that you're so sour when I hear your words? Why? Are you regretting hurting my mother, regretting hurting this daughter of yours? Do you feel that you've lived for thousands of years, but you're still alone, with no one close to you, no one whom you can trust? That's very pitiful, very sad, right? What a pity. People like you, people without a heart, are destined to be alone. Until you die, you'll be alone. The young lady's voice was clear. Every word was enunciated clearly. Not much emotion, but unfortunately, this made one feel the ridicule in the young lady's tone. Every word was like a sharp blade, directly piercing into Huang Wuyo's heart. Huang Wuyo's eyes turned darker and darker. That handsome face was filled with emotions, contorting, gradually turning sinister. His malicious cold eyes swept towards Yiqing Luo. It was just a simple action, but it seemed to have gathered a majestic and powerful energy, suppressing her to the point that even breathing was a little difficult. Yiqing Luo's face turned slightly pale. The action of bandaging Long Ao's wound was slightly stagnant. Feng family's lass. Long Ao frowned as he spoke in a low voice, as he turned his hand to support Yiqing Luo's slightly trembling petite body. But his hand was pressed down by the young lady's hand. She said calmly, "Don't move. I don't want to waste my medicine." Saying that, she continued the action of her hand as her cold voice rippled, being poked in the heart, turning angry from embarrassment. She couldn't even be bothered to raise her brows, not looking at Huang Wuyo's expression, but continued on her own. "Palace Lord of Darkness, aren't you representing my father's identity? To thank Long Ao? What's the use of verbal thanks? Why not give me some practical thank you? At least let me see how much sincerity you, who claims to be my father, has." His voice fell on the last word. Yiqing Luo had already bandaged Long Ao's wound. Retracting her hand, she casually raised her eyebrows and looked at Huang Wuyo. When she met Huang Wuyo's eyes, which were filled with raging waves of shock, the expression on her face dimmed slightly, but she did not have much of a reaction. "Ha!" Huang Wuyo let out a light chuckle, his thin lips curling into a sinister smile. "This mouth of yours is much more powerful than your mother's." He stared at Yiqing Luo's face, which was extremely similar to Feng Ji's, as his eyes revealed an undetectable madness. Once again, his thin lips moved slightly as the words that came out of his mouth were cold and sinister. "It's better to be like your mother. At least you know how to be obedient." Yiqing Luo's sharp senses caught a flash of madness in his eyes when he stared at her earlier. She frowned and could not hide the disgust in her eyes. "Palace Master of the Palace of Darkness, do you know what you look like now?" Without waiting for Huang Wuyo to reply, she gave a direct answer, like a panic-stricken mad dog. Panicking out of fear? Huang Wuyo's face turned cold. "What a joke. Just based on the two of you, you think you can make this seat panic?" This phrase was really ridiculous. This seat's obedient daughter. Surely you don't think that. After obtaining the so-called God Emperor's inheritance, you can really override this seat's head? You're this seat's daughter. Your innate talent. How could it possibly surpass this seat's? Chapter 5187. This seat had said right from the start, you inheriting the God Emperor's inheritance is merely a waste of resources. Only this seat inherits the God Emperor's inheritance. Then you'll be able to display the true power of the God Emperor. Huang Wuyo's gaze towards Yiqing Luo was filled with greed. But it's all right. You inheriting the God Emperor's inheritance is the same as this seat inheriting it. After all, you are my daughter, and the person I want is also you. His last 3 words were suppressed to an extremely low tone. For no reason, it added a strange chill to the air. Yiqing Luo could feel that he was staring at her divine phoenix profound heart jade. The meaning of Huang Wuyo's words was planning to nurture the profound heart jade. When the time was right, he would use his method to strip her of the divine phoenix profound heart jade and the God Emperor's inheritance. Huang Wuyo could do this. Yiqing Luo was doubtful and couldn't believe it. The God Emperor's inheritance wasn't that easy to inherit. Moreover, the God Emperor's inheritance needed to be recognized by the inheritance. If it wasn't recognized, it would be of no use. For example, Feng Liqiong was the same. That was why she was only enacting God Emperor for the past 10,000 years. Even if Huang Wuyo really killed her, he probably wouldn't be able to get the God Emperor's inheritance, right? So what was Huang Wuyo planning? Yiqing Luo concealed the deep meaning in her eyes and calmed her emotions down, not showing that she was affected by his words in front of Huang Wuyo. Her brows rose slightly as she spoke casually. The palace lord of the secluded palace is really agitated. Looks like I've hit the jackpot. She tilted her head, and her charming eyes were tinged with a bit of ridicule. If you weren't panicking, why would you? Even when your vitality is at its peak, you still have to use a part of your divine sense to stop me. Her vision went past Huang Wuyo and looked at the bottomless tunnel behind him as she gave a chilly smile. When you sensed that long AO and I had entered this area, you became anxious, so anxious that you totally didn't wish for me to take another step forward. Yiqing Luo's smile suddenly stopped at this moment. The coldness in her long and narrow eyes, as well as the flames on her body, instantly exploded. The palace master of the Netherworld Palace is taking such a huge risk to stop me. This is completely different from what you said when you said you didn't take me seriously. Is this what they mean by saying no, but being honest on the inside? The girl's mocking tone and that ice-cold expression. This caused Huang Wuyo's pupils to shrink. It was as if he had seen Feng go looking at him with hatred in her eyes. He vaguely remembered. Back then, when Feng sealed him here, she looked at him with that gaze. At that time, Feng, just like the current Yiqing Luo, his face was reflected in her eyes. However, he no longer welcomed the love he had for her back then. All that was left was hatred and ruthless coldness. Huang Wuyo's vision blurred for a moment. An indescribable pain came from the empty place in his heart. This kind of pain was extremely unfamiliar. This feeling of emptiness that could not be filled was extremely unfamiliar. He did not like this feeling at all. His heart was filled with vexation, causing his emotions to become violent. His sleeves fluttered and his eyes were as cold as an ice mountain as he swept out a powerful, profound energy, attacking towards Yiqing Luo. That speed was extremely fast. Yiqing Luo only felt a piercing cold air piercing past her face. The next moment, her shoulder was pressed down by Long Ao as he pulled her backwards. Raising her palm, she welcomed Huang Wuyo's attack. Chapter 5188. Bang! The two forces collided. Long Ao was forced to retreat a few steps, and under Yiqing Luo's tugging, she retreated a few steps. Boundless profound energy formed an enormous profound light in midair, enveloping the entire sky. Two extremely cold auras intertwined with each other. The entire passageway was filled with an extreme chill, as if they were in an ice house. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but shiver. Yiqing Luo's trembling was noticed by Long Ao. He pulled Yiqing Luo and leapt several steps backwards. He only stopped when he reached the stairs that he came from. This Huang Wuyo, even though it's just a wisp of his spiritual sense, and he was severely injured, he's still so powerful. Old Man Song's voice resounded in Yiqing Luo's mind. Indeed, a person who is called a monster. Yiqing Luo's brows creased as she stared at Huang Wuyo without blinking. As the profound lights collided, the power dispersed. Huang Wuyo's lips curled into a sinister smile before he made his move again. Long Ao fiercely spat. His face was gloomy and disdainful. He also pounced forward. Yiqing Luo couldn't even stop him in time. As soon as the two sides made their move, the fight was earth-shattering. Huang Wuyo's attacks were extremely ruthless. Every move he made was filled with a horrifying killing intent, aimed straight for the vitals. Long Ao's killing intent also burst forth. This made Yiqing Luo finally understand. What was the Azura of hell? His aura, which was filled with bloodlust and killing intent, was completely revealed. However, after all, Long Ao was injured. The medicinal pill, which Yiqing Luo refined, no matter how strong the medicinal effect was, it was not possible to make Long Ao recover to his original state in such a short period of time. In addition, the auras of the two Raos were too sinister. An energy lingered in the air. It had a huge impact on Yiqing Luo. Long Ao was somewhat apprehensive. Huang Wuyo took advantage of this misgivings. In this exchange, Long Ao was at a disadvantage. This was an inevitable result. Of course, Yiqing Luo couldn't possibly watch Long Ao fight alone and sit back and do nothing. Long Ao had brought her to the place where Huang Wuyo was sealed, no matter what their motives were. The only thing she could be sure of was that Long Ao had no malice towards her. Huang Wuyo seized the opportunity and made an illusory move, attacking Long Ao's vitals with a backhand. Swish! A wisp of flame shot out. In the midst of two gloomy and dark rays like a leaping flame, it pushed aside the fight between the two of them. The two of them quickly separated. That streak of raging flames swept through the air with a whoosh and returned to the slender, white hand. The girl's bright face was calm. Long Ao also took advantage of the situation to avoid Huang Wuyo's vital attack and flew to a safe zone. He frowned as he looked at Yiqing Luo. Who asked you to take action? Yiqing Luo raised her eyes. Her eyes were as clear as water, without much undulation. She pursed her pink lips and pinched the glower flame fan in her fingertips. Her clear voice was filled with some hostility. Since I've already inherited the position of the God Emperor, then it is my responsibility to reseal him. Her gaze slowly shifted towards Huang Wuyo. There's something you said that I don't agree with. She slowly raised her hand. The azure dew bracelet on his wrist flowed with a few wisps of cold red light. The cherry blossoms in full bloom lingered in the air. That was the azure dew bracelet, gradually releasing its energy. The red glow of the raging flame enveloped Yiqing Luo's entire body. It set off the young lady, as though she had walked out from a sea of fire, stepping on a path of fire. Her entire body was filled with a thick, ruthless chill, which didn't lose out to the two Raos. Chapter 5189. Yiqing Luo's gaze met with Huang Wuyo's without any hesitation. The pupil surpasses the master. So what if you're my blood-related father? On what basis do you assume that only you are able to unleash the power of the God Emperor's inheritance? She slowly raised her slender fair hand. Her slender fingertips pinched a fierce dagger. Trash seventh young mistress. Overlord, please be gentler. Chapter 5190. Atonement for everything you've done. 1. Currently in the middle of typing. Please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 5190. The glower flame fan retracted. The silver thread on Huang Wuyo's palm seemed to have come alive as it swam back. Huang Wuyo narrowed his eyes as he stared at his palm, which was covered with blood for some time, before he slowly turned his gaze back to Yiqing Luo. He raised his hand and licked his palm. His lips, which were stained with blood, made him look even more treacherous. "My good daughter, you really let me down." Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change at all. After she retracted the glower flame fan, her vision sized up the surroundings. The energy which she released earlier wasn't weak at all. The feeling of the earth quaking and mountains shaking was an illusion. But as it turned out, there wasn't any collapse in this huge and bright underground cave. Not even gravel flew around. It was as if the earth quaking, mountains shaking, and all kinds of collapsing and rumbling sound were just an illusion. Yiqing Luo's brows creased slightly as her half-squinted eyes revealed a wisp of cold glint. She frowned as she looked at Long Ao. Her wrist moved, and the azure dew bracelet shone brightly. A huge vermilion bird with raging flames appeared out of thin air. The moment Qi Yin appeared, it raised its head and gave out a clear cry. In this spacious underground cave, the echo reverberated. Finally willing to let this sacred beast out, Qi Yin cried out a few times as it landed in front of Yiqing Luo. Its blood-red eyes scanned the surroundings. Finally, his gaze landed on Huang Wuyo. That arrogant Qi Yin instantly lowered its arrogance. "It's you?" Qi Yin's head turned towards Yiqing Luo as its sharp mouth poked Yiqing Luo. He isn't." The four sacred beasts were once Feng Ji's contracted battle pets. Following beside Feng Gu, they naturally met Huang Wuyo. They had once helped Feng Gu and Huang Wuyo in a great battle. That battle, Feng Gu paid the price with his life, and they were forced to sleep for thousands of years. All of this was because of this man in front of them. But wasn't he already sealed by Feng Gu? Why would he see him again? Huang Wuyo's line of sight fell on Qi Yin, but it only took a glance at him before it shifted away. He curved his lips, laughing sinisterly and treacherously. "Good daughter, you don't think a stupid bird can nourish me, right? 10,000 years ago, Gur summoned the four great sacred beasts to attack me, but it was useless. Do you think that compared to Gur, your contracted four great sacred beasts are a match for me?" Huang Wuyo laughed confidently and ostentatiously. He slowly put down his blood-covered hand, and the greed in his eyes reappeared. "My dear daughter, Gu'er's soul has already dispersed, and I am your one and only kin in this world. Why don't you stay by my side? Not only can you enjoy my fatherly love, but I will also not bury your talent. Do you want to lose me, your father, after losing your mother?" In between Yiqing Luo's brows, there wasn't a single bit of emotion. It was as if he didn't take Huang Wuyo's words to heart. She sneered as she looked at Huang Wuyo, speaking immodestly. "Your disgusting face really makes me feel disgusted." Her fingertips moved slightly. Following that, her peripheral vision swept towards Qi Yin. At the same time, Qi Yin opened his mouth and spat out a blazing flame, instantly engulfing the entire underground cave. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The sound of the rising flame was extremely clear in the quiet and spacious underground cave. Chapter 5191. The flame darted and rolled towards Huang Wuyo. It brushed past Huang Wuyo's face. Huang Wuyo flicked his sleeves, and the dense, profound Yin Shi pushed the flame away. Soon after, the mysterious Yin Shi, which was as thick as a black fog, wrapped him up tightly. It directly blocked the burning of the red flame. He laughed sinisterly. "My dear daughter, I've said that the four sacred beasts can't do anything to me. What can a stupid bird do?" His gaze towards Yiqing Luo was tainted with a trace of unknown mockery. "But since my dear daughter wants to test it out, I, as her father, will naturally satisfy her wish." As his voice fell, the expression on Huang Wuyo's face suddenly turned gloomy. His face was filled with thick malice, and with the excitement of teasing his prey. The next moment, his body was like an arrow leaving the bow as he darted towards the red flame. He stretched out his hand and stretched out his 5 fingers like an eagle's claw, flickering with dark, profound Yin Qi. That destructive Yin Qi seemed to have opened its bloody mouth, as though it was going to swallow the red flame whole. "My dear daughter wants to see Vermilion Bird die. I will fulfill it." Huang Wuyo's speed was very fast. But Yiqing Luo's speed was even faster. Just as Huang Wuyo's 5 fingers were about to clasp the red flame's neck, a gust of hurricane struck. The majestic, profound energy surged, and the glower flame fan's wind blade was as sharp as a knife. The silver wire wrapped around Huang Wuyo's wrist again, and at the same time, the red flame's figure disappeared in front of Huang Wuyo. Yiqing Luo's reaction was fast. She just needed to slow down a little. There was a possibility that it would turn into another story. She knew that Huang Wuyo was already on guard against her glower flame fan's silver wire. Yiqing Luo had no intention to tangle with Huang Wuyo directly. At the moment when Huang Wuyo rushed towards the red flame, she summoned it back to the pet space in time. A soul-contracted battle pet. The master summon was the first to bear the brunt. Huang Wuyo had no time to react, and at this moment, she seized the opportunity to clamp down on Huang Wuyo's wrist, which also stopped Huang Wuyo's mobility. Huang Wuyo looked at the scarlet flame that was just inches away from him, but it suddenly disappeared. His wrist was also bound by the silver threads, making it impossible for him to move. Using his brain a little, he understood this was Yiqing Luo's scheme. There was a tinge of admiration in his eyes, and he didn't show any other emotions on his face because his movements were restricted. He smiled sinisterly as he looked at Yiqing Luo. "You're indeed this seat's daughter. You're indeed smart. This seat really wants to keep you in secluded palace more and more." Yiqing Luo's icy cold eyes calmly looked at Huang Wuyo. Under the light of the blazing flames, the young girl's beautiful face appeared even more beautiful and elegant. She pursed her pink lips, and her eyes were cold. "If I could, I really don't want to admit that my father is someone like you." Huang Wuyo's lips curled into a sinister smile. "Unfortunately, there's no if in this world." He lowered his eyes and looked at his bound hands. His smile was a little sinister and mocking. "My good daughter's way of thinking and calculation are not bad. It's just that she used it on the wrong person." His hands were filled with blood as he slowly twisted them. He allowed the silver wires to embed into his skin, drawing out numerous blood scars, but he had an indifferent attitude. Suddenly, the black chi around his body shook. A loud bam was heard. The silver wires which were wrapped around Huang Wuyo's wrist suddenly exploded. That indestructible silver wires which had been following Yiqing Luo, at this moment broke into pieces, as though it had lost all its vitality. Chapter 5192. Yiqing Luo's pupils constricted abruptly. That was the silver thread which Xian had given her. It was actually broken by Huang Wuyo. Yiqing Luo's brows surfaced a glint of bloodthirsty viciousness. Her slender fingers pinched the glower flame fan as her fingertips started to turn pale. "TSK. Good daughter, don't look at this seat with that expression." Huang Wuyo looked at the young lady's pale face as his thin lips curled into a sinister smile. "This seat had long said that based on your ability, there's no way you can hurt this seat." Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes to congeal on those broken strands of silver wire as she slowly raised her eyes. That pair of long and narrow eyes didn't have any fluctuation of emotions. On the contrary, it seemed to be stained with frost. Her lips curled into an enchanting but bloodthirsty smile. "Then, did you really think that I summoned the scarlet flame just to tease you?" The glower flame fan in her hand spun, and the majestic, profound waves scuttled in the raging flames. Following that, it landed somewhere. She took a look at Long Ao's direction, and after exchanging glances with him, they nodded at the same time. Looking at the direction where the glower flame fan was attacking, Huang Wuyo's complacent expression froze at this moment. He was just about to make a move. Suddenly, a huge wall blocked in front of him. Huang Wuyo subconsciously raised his palm and slapped downwards. "Pah!" It was the crisp sound of slap falling. Huang Wuyo felt his arm going numb from the shock. The huge wall in front of him was a patch of green and indestructible. Not only did his palm not cause the slightest bit of damage, but also nearly broke his own hand. Black tortoise. It was the sacred beast Black Tortoise. Black fog surged in Huang Wuyo's eyes as he stared at the black tortoise which was curled up in the tortoise shell. On top of the tortoise shell, there were two snakes coiled around each other as they stuck out their scarlet tongues, swaying towards Huang Wuyo, as though it was ridiculing Huang Wuyo. Just as Huang Wuyo paused for a moment, a voice rang out. Yiqing Luo and Long Ao flew up abruptly as they headed towards the direction of the glower flame fan. Two rays of tyrannical, profound qi struck downwards with a chilly, murderous intent. Instantly, an enormous fluctuation of profound energy suddenly erupted from that direction. The surging, mysterious yin qi suddenly rushed out, madly twisting in all directions, forming a huge black light. Yiqing Luo stretched out her hand and received the spinning glower flame fan. Then he raised his hand. A tongue of fire sprang up from the blazing flames, washing away the cold and terrifying profound yin energy of the drizzle cave. However, this action caused her to bear the violent surge of mysterious yin qi. Yiqing Luo made use of the glower flame fan to control the blazing flames, burning and dispersing the darkness. However, her power was at the stage of merging with the divine emperor's inheritance. Enduring the corrosion of the mysterious yin qi from Huang Wuyo's seal grounds was a little strenuous. After a while, the profound yin qi went past the raging flames and charged straight towards Yiqing Luo. Like a sharp blade, it cut open wounds on Yiqing Luo's body. Get lost! Long Ao's sleeves fluttered. His purplish-black lips were tightly pursed. The half of his face that was covered in scales was slowly moving. Tightly, his entire face was covered with sparkling scales. His sleeves brushed towards Yiqing Luo, isolating the profound yin qi which was corroding Yiqing Luo's body. Yiqing Luo slightly condensed her breath as she kept the glower flame fan. Her gaze stopped for a moment at the blazing flames which formed a fire circle. After that, she looked towards Huang Wuyo. Her lips curled as she gave a mocking smile. Your biggest shortcoming is that you are overly confident. Chapter 5193. Yiqing Luo summoned Qi Yan, not to deal with Huang Wuyo. Qi Yan's blazing flame could purify all the darkness in the world. Even if it couldn't purify Huang Wuyo's profound yin qi, but it would definitely affect the profound yin qi to a certain extent. Furthermore, earlier when she made her move, the underground cave wasn't affected in the slightest. She already had a guess in her heart. This underground cave, perhaps it wasn't the real devil domain any longer. Or, to be more accurate, she was now in a completely different space. And this space was created by Huang Wuyo. So, any kind of power was unable to destroy this illusory space. The so-called underground cave passageway was probably just an illusion, which was also commonly known as illusion. The truth had proven that Yiqing Luo's guess was right. When Qi Yan came out and released the blazing flame, the entire underground cave was indeed affected. Huang Wuyo was overly confident, totally not putting Qi Yan in his eyes, adding on to the fact that his attention had always been focused on Yiqing Luo. Because of this, he totally didn't notice Qi Yan's motive. When the blazing flame burned the entire underground cave, the place where the profound yin qi was the densest, which was the source of the profound yin qi, would naturally be affected. This also gave Yiqing Luo an accurate location, the direction where Yiqing Luo and Qi Yan attacked earlier. It was the direction which led to the source of the profound yin qi. Yiqing Luo guessed that could possibly be the place where Huang Wuyo was sealed. Originally, Yiqing Luo was guessing, but now, seeing Huang Wuyo's reaction, she was basically completely certain. Yiqing Luo's brows rose slightly as her pink lips pursed slightly. Huang Wuyo, no matter if it's because you're Huang Wuyo or the palace lord of secluded darkness, today, I will atone for everything that you've done. There was a hint of coldness in her voice, and sonorous and forceful, showing her determination. Her vision paused for a moment on Huang Wuyo's face. Following that, she suddenly flipped her hand and placed Long Ao, who was already covered in scales, in front of her, as she leapt and flew towards the fire cave. Her speed was extremely fast. The peach blossom dress only left behind a beautiful arc. Huang Wuyo's pupils trembled as he gritted his teeth and flew into a rage out of humiliation. Feng Qingluo, come back here. With a quick sweep of his hand, the surging profound Yin Qi surged towards Xiangui. Xiangui's turtle shell was extremely hard. However, the mysterious Yin Qi that was filled with Yin Qi was like a thick black fog that covered it bit by bit. That kind of heavy and chilly feeling that made it impossible for it to move was still not a good feeling. Huang Wuyo passed by Xiangui and wanted to rush towards Yiqing Luo to stop her from entering the fire ring. Xiangui suddenly rose into the air. The indestructible turtle shell fiercely slammed into Huang Wuyo's back. Then, in the blink of an eye, he disappeared in the direction of the young girl. At the same time, the girl's figure completely disappeared from the ring of fire. His disciples left behind blazing flames that burned brightly. The lingering sparks shone brilliantly on their faces. It also reflected the sinister and treacherous expressions of the two people. Huang Wuyo cursed under his breath as he clenched his fists tightly and chased after the ring of fire. A hand suddenly blocked in front of him. Huang Wuyo raised his eyes and met with Long Ao's cold and treacherous eyes, which seemed to be ridiculing and ridiculing. His face sunk. Get lost. Your daughter indeed looks like that woman. Long Ao's gloomy and cold voice had a tinge of ridicule. Chapter 5194. 10,000 years ago, you lost to that new Rao. 10,000 years later, you're still being played around by that new Rao's daughter. Long Ao's tone was filled with ridicule. Revered Wuyu, look at your flustered and exasperated look. It's really ridiculous. Long Ao long. Huang Wuyo gritted his teeth as he raised his hand and locked onto Long Ao's neck, pressing him against the stone wall. What are you so pleased about? Did you really think that you're going to help that woman now? She won't know that you're actually my man. Speaking till here, he suddenly laughed lowly. Don't forget, it's you who tricked her into coming to my formation. Long Ao's expression didn't show much emotion. He curled his thin lips as a hint of ridicule flashed past his cold and gloomy eyes. That murderous, bloody, and ruthless aura surfaced on his brows. He said, the moment she pushed me away, I'm afraid she had already guessed it. Long Ao's brows drooped slightly. That cold and stiff face was covered with a thick, gloomy ruthlessness. This daughter of yours is smarter than you think. She's right about one thing. You're indeed overly confident. If you want to leave this place successfully, it's best not to look at her. Pass through the fire circle. Yiqing Luo supported herself against the wall as she stabilized her footsteps. What entered her eyes was a huge tomb chamber. No, or perhaps it was a slaughterhouse. This was a huge tomb chamber. The place where Yiqing Luo was at was the entrance of this tomb chamber. Huge coffins were placed one after another, filling up the entire chamber. Yiqing Luo looked over. In the huge tomb chamber, there were at least hundreds of coffins. All the coffin lids weren't closed, as they were neatly lined up in a row, horizontally beside the coffins. But the most shocking thing was, many of the open coffins had naked corpses hanging on them, pierced through the human body with a sharp hook. Yiqing Luo also discovered that there were a few who were still alive. Those corpses hanging above the coffins, or living people, were all covered with blood-red threads, almost forming a red net, entangling them. Even for Yiqing Luo, when she saw this scene, she shuddered. What was Huang Wuyo doing? How could such a terrible Azura field be created here? Yiqing Luo was just about to step into the tomb. Suddenly, he heard footsteps coming from the front. She immediately dodged and hid in the dark of the cave entrance. When he looked over, he saw a group of people carrying wooden basins and walking into the coffin in an orderly manner. No, those people couldn't be called people. Yiqing Luo could obviously sense the thick, profound Yin Qi from them. It was a corpse puppet. These undead puppets were different from what Yiqing Luo had seen previously. They didn't look much different from normal people. The only difference was that his face was expressionless, and his eyes were lifeless. There was not the slightest fluctuation. There were a total of 8 undead puppets. Each puppet held a wooden basin in their hands. From this distance, Yiqing Luo couldn't see what was in the wooden basin. The dead corpse puppets were expressionless as they walked to Lu Zai's coffin in an orderly manner. Then, he poured the contents of the wooden basin into the coffin. This one pour. Yiqing Luo only saw some black-red liquid in the wooden basin. There were some things floating on top. After the dead corpse puppets finished pouring the liquid, another dead corpse puppet came over and took over the wooden basin. Chapter 5195. It was orderly, like an assembly line project. He focused on doing the things at hand, as if there was nothing else around him. After the black-red liquid was poured into the coffins, the living man hanging in the air, still breathing, was put into the coffin bit by bit. When the black hooks above fell, those who were still conscious widened their eyes in horror, wanting to struggle. Despite the large amount of blood that the hooks had hooked out of his body, he struggled with all his might. But they were still placed into the coffins. But when a few living people entered the coffins, Yiqing Luo couldn't see what happened in the coffins from this angle. She only saw the moment the people entered. A black-red mist sprang up from the coffins, and immediately after, it was covered with balls of profound yin qi. Vaguely, Yiqing Luo seemed to see those living coffins, one by one, stretched out 2 hands at the same time, stretched out perfectly straight. Then it was surrounded by the profound yin qi. The arms were covered with densely packed bloodlines, following the profound yin qi as it seeped out. But after a moment, Yiqing Luo saw those pairs of hands, withering at a speed visible to the naked eye, leaving only a layer of skin and bones. After that, pairs of skin and bones hands fell into the coffins. When the bones touched the coffins, there was a bang sound. After doing all this, those corpse puppets, one by one, turned around and left expressionlessly. This is... Old Man Song's horrified voice sounded in Yiqing Luo's mind, in bloodlust skill. The azure dew bracelet on her wrist was somewhat restless, as if Old Man Song wanted to drill out from inside, but was trying his best to suppress it. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and pressed on the azure dew bracelet. What is in bloodlust skill? The young lady's slender fingers gently brushed over the azure dew bracelet, suppressing Old Man Song's restlessness. Over there, hundreds of coffins to Old Man Song's spiritual body had a great attraction, as if there was some kind of power enticing Old Man Song. Fortunately, the azure dew bracelet suppressed Old Man Song's impulse. Coupled with Yiqing Luo's comfort, Old Man Song calmed down. His tone was a little gloomy. I've only seen descriptions of this technique in ancient books. I'm not too sure about the specifics. This cultivation technique is an ancient forbidden curse, extremely sinister. 100 coffins, fresh blood and flesh, watered with blood. Old Man Song's tone became more and more gloomy, as if he was suppressing the emotions in his heart. This place of extreme yin, to cultivate such an ancient and sinister cultivation method, the person behind the scenes of Dark Nether Palace wants to destroy the world? Hearing Old Man Song's words, Yiqing Luo was stunned for a moment. This cultivation method was actually so powerful. Destroy the world? Yiqing Luo raised her eyes and looked ahead at the hundreds of coffins. She didn't know if it was because of Old Man Song's words, but she seemed to smell a faint scent of blood under the dense, profound yin energy. The blood threads that were entwined by the mysterious yin qi formed a dense blood web above the coffin. Then, he followed the guidance of the mysterious yin qi. Little by little, it spread forward. The blood threads weaved into a huge net that penetrated the stone wall in front of them and slid forward bit by bit. That direction, Yiqing Luo pressed the azure dew bracelet as she asked in her heart, Old Man Song, what is the use of this yin bloodlust skill? Old Man Song's tone was heavy as he said word by word, the ancient books didn't record it in detail, but according to my observation, I think that the Dark Nether Palace set up the forbidden curse here to cultivate the Yin bloodlust skill, their motive is probably. Chapter 5196. Yiqing Luo's eyes squinted slightly as she continued Old Man Song's words. To undo the seal, Old Man Song remained silent, which was considered as tacit agreement. When she saw this place, Yiqing Luo already had some guesses. After all, in this place, the place where Huang Wuyo was sealed, in 10,000 years, it had turned into a place of extreme Yin, with Yin Qi lingering around. Coupled with what the Devil Hall said earlier, Secluded Palace was in the Devil Domain, which was also the secret powerhouse of this sealed land. Every day, there would be a batch of young cultivators being brought into the secret base. Moreover, she didn't see those cultivators leaving the secret base alive. Yiqing Luo used her brain a little and roughly guessed some things. Those young cultivators had probably become the tools to bleed in their coffins. And the motive, other than undoing the seal, Yiqing Luo couldn't think of any other reason. Thinking of this, Yiqing Luo squinted her long and narrow eyes as her gaze followed the sky full of blood web, concentrating on the direction where the blood web was pouring into. She pursed her pink lips. Over there, is that the place where Huang Wuyo was sealed? No wonder Huang Wuyo's ability was getting stronger and stronger. After being sealed, he was still able to split out his consciousness to create trouble time and time again. Previously, Huang Wuyo could only hide in the dark corner, playing with people's hearts to achieve his own motive. Later on, he was able to split out his consciousness and possess Gu Jingyu's body to exchange blows with her. Until now, he was able to split out his consciousness and congeal it into a living person, appearing in front of her. Huang Wuyo was gradually becoming stronger, probably using this heavenly Yin blood-devouring technique. Huang Wuyo wanted to make use of heavenly Yin blood-devouring technique to restore his sealed strength. From there, he would break the seal and regain his freedom. After all, it had been 10,000 years. The seal which Feng Ge had set up was not as strong and indestructible as it was 10,000 years ago. Following the recovery of Huang Wuyo's strength, the seal which Feng Ge had set up started to loosen. This was a reason why Huang Wuyo had so many chances to escape. No wonder Huang Wuyo wanted to establish a force called Secluded Palace. He couldn't show himself, and the amount of resources needed was simply too much. To nurture such an inhumane and insane force like Secluded Palace, it could bring Huang Wuyo numerous conveniences. But how innocent were those profounders? Why should she sacrifice herself for him? Just because the weak are prey to the strong? Yiqing Luo couldn't agree with Huang Wuyo's way of doing things. Just like how she couldn't forgive Huang Wuyo for everything he had done for the sake of his ambitions. Girl, you should be careful. Old Man Song's voice was somewhat grave. This place is Huang Wuyo's territory. He has used the demonic dragon to lure you here, so he definitely has a plan. Long Outyin was mentioned. Yiqing Luo's curly long lashes drooped slightly as there was a trace of unclear emotions in her eyes. In his heart, he was more or less unhappy. In the beginning, she really did not suspect that Long Outyin was in cahoots with Huang Wuyo. Long Outyin was a man with that kind of personality. It was either black or white. People like Huang Wuyo, who liked to play tricks and scheme, were not easy to deal with. Long Outyin would definitely not be shameless. Therefore, when Long Outyin mentioned that he knew where Huang Wuyo was sealed and brought her there, she did not doubt his words at all. He finally realized that there was a problem between Long Outyin and Huang Wuyo. It was when she summoned Qi Yin and released the raging flames. Chapter 5197. He was just trying to stop her. Long Outyin's motive was to cooperate with Huang Wuyo to keep her in that illusory space that was isolated from the outside world. But in order to let her enter this place safely, Long Outyin had blocked all the dangers in front of her. So when she knew that Long Outyin and Huang Wuyo had teamed up, she still couldn't blame him. Perhaps this was Long Outyin's motive. Or perhaps she believed that one's mouth could lie, but not one's eyes. She could clearly feel that when Huang Wuyo mentioned Feng Ge. The change in Long Outyin's gaze and expression. That absolutely couldn't be faked. Perhaps, in Long Out Yin's heart, Fenggu really occupied a very important position. Even if Fenggu had sealed her in the Divine Emperor's tomb for 10,000 years, Long Out Yin had never hated her. Perhaps Long Out Yin really had some difficulties, but these difficulties had nothing to do with her. Yiqing Luo adjusted her emotions and caressed the azure dew bracelet lightly. I know, I won't be rash. I want to survive more than anyone else. That cultivation method is too attractive to the spiritual body. That cultivation method wants to absorb me, to become its nourishment. Old Man Song's tone was very heavy and somewhat strained. I have to hide in the Purgatory Tower and temporarily fall into a deep sleep. Be careful. Yiqing Luo caressed the azure dew bracelet lightly. I know, go ahead. Old Man Song's aura gradually disappeared into the azure dew bracelet. Yiqing Luo released the azure dew bracelet and slightly raised her eyes, staring at the sky full of bloodweb. At this moment, if he destroyed all the coffins that had been set up with the sinister forbidden spell, it would be impossible for him to escape. Huang Wuyo's plan? Wouldn't it come to nothing? Cut off the source of Huang Wuyo's power. Could stop Huang Wuyo from regaining his strength. But if it was really like what she had predicted, how could she destroy this Azura hell so easily? With Huang Wuyo's cautious character, she absolutely had no way to easily destroy this place. She had to think of a way. Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes flickered incessantly, flowing with splendor. She paused for a moment, then quietly moved her body toward the direction of the coffin and stretched out her body. She had just moved. His wrist was suddenly grasped by a large, ice-cold palm. The powerful force made her unable to move even half a step. Yiqing Luo's petite body instantly collapsed as she speedily turned around and raised her palm to attack. However, his outstretched hand was held tightly by another large palm. The refreshing fragrance of plums seeped into his nose. Yiqing Luo's struggling movements stopped slightly. What entered her eyes was a face that was as cold as cast. That pair of emotionless black eyes reflected her thoughts. The man's thin lips were slightly pursed, and his expression was cold. Just like his aura, it was also extremely cold. Yiqing Luo frowned as she suppressed her voice. Zhu Wuexin, what are you doing here? The man in front of him was dressed in a fiery red robe, but he looked cold. Who else could it be but Zhu Wuxin? The moment she opened her mouth, the man raised his hand to block her lips. The girl leaned back and moved her head away, avoiding Zhu Wuxin's hand. Zhu Wuxin had no intention of forcing it. Seeing that she had calmed down, he grabbed her wrist and pulled her into his arms. The young lady's elbow bent as she blocked his chest. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she raised her eyes to look at him. Her eyes were filled with doubts. Zhu Wuxin quietly opened that pair of deep and emotionless eyes, staring straight at her for some time. It made Yiqing Luo's hair stand on end. Chapter 5198. Following that, he lowered his body slightly. That black hair, which was hanging on his shoulder, fell onto her body. Yiqing Luo's elbow exerted strength as she tried to retreat further away from him. He had already leaned towards her ear as he spoke in an extremely soft voice. Don't move. Yiqing Luo's elbow pressed against him as she bit her lips, gritting her teeth in anger. Let go. If you go over, you'll be sending yourself to your death. Zhu Wuxian's voice was indifferent. Yiqing Luo's brows creased even tighter. Who said I'm going over? She wasn't an idiot. How could she possibly rush forward rashly? She had found the exit of that illusory space through the raging flames. Huang Wuyo had a high possibility of knowing her current location. The minute she made any movements, Huang Wuyo would find her. Hearing Yiqing Luo's words, Zhu Wuxian's hand stiffened as he immediately turned silent. His brows drooped slightly. This distance, this angle. Yiqing Luo could clearly see that Crow's feather-like eyelashes drooping slightly, probably because Zhu Wuxian was used to being cold. At this moment, looking at his eyelashes, one would feel that the arc of the shadow was a little cold. His face was expressionless and extremely cold. Yiqing Luo couldn't tell what he was feeling right now. He had no intention to let go of her, but she really couldn't take it. Yiqing Luo struggled as she tried to pry his hand away. Let go. This time, Zhu Wuexin only slightly withdrew his palm, as though he wanted to hold her again. But he only held her for a moment before he lowered his eyes and let go of her. Yiqing Luo immediately retreated, leaving the boundary of his presence. Looking at the young lady's unfamiliar and alienating attitude, Zhu Wuexin's emotionless eyes flashed past a tinge of pain. His vision lightly swept past those 100 over coffins. Retracting his vision, he leaned against the stone wall as his voice was very light as he spoke indifferently. As long as you don't do anything silly. Why are you here? Yiqing Luo repeated her own question. This place was where Huang Wuyo was sealed. Even if Huang Wuyo and Zhu Wuexin were in a cooperative relationship, Yiqing Luo absolutely didn't believe that Huang Wuyo would tell Zhu Wuexin where he was residing. After all, to him now was still in a sealed state. Chu Wuxin's strength was unfathomable. If they knew that he was sealed, they would do something to him. That would become a pile of big trouble. Thus, how could Zhu Wuxin possibly appear here? Zhu Wuxin was silent for a moment. His cold and thin lips pursed slightly as he said indifferently, I followed you here. Follow me? Yiqing Luo frowned. She had followed Long Outyin to this place. Chu Wuxin had been following them all this time, and neither she nor Long Outyin had noticed. This Zhu Wuxin, just how strong was he? Chu Wuxin gazed deeply at her face. His slightly hoarse and cold voice carried a hint of imperceptible gentleness. The yin energy here is very heavy. I was worried about you, so I followed you. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased even tighter. So, you have been following me secretly? Was he a F**king idiot? Chu Wuxin nodded and then shook his head. On his cold and handsome face, there was actually an expression similar to that of being wronged. That kind of grievance was shown by Zhu Wuexin, who had facial paralysis, but it didn't seem out of place. The God Emperor's tomb has appeared, and you've succeeded the throne as the new divine phoenix. I know of Abyss Palace's thirst for the inheritance, and I also know that Abyss Palace has ill intentions towards you. He paused slightly. Those who weren't good at explaining unnaturally licked their dry lips. I'm just worried about you. Chapter 5199. Yiqing Luo's pink lips pursed. Towards Zhu Wuexin, he rarely showed this kind of expression and emotions in front of outsiders, and only showed to her. Even welcome, based on his character, he would never say such sweet nothings. In front of her, time and time again. Facing such a stubborn person, Yiqing Luo really didn't know how to face him. Cold and neglect. None of them were able to make Zhu Wuexin let go of his obsession towards her. Now, to think that he had followed her to this dangerous place, no matter how strong his ability was. To be called a monster by Long Ao, to be able to cross hands with Feng Gu at his peak, and was totally not inferior to Feng Gu. In this territory, which belonged to Huang Wuyu, once it triggered Huang Wuyu's retaliation. Huang Wuyu probably wouldn't care about Zhu Wuexin and directly took action, as though he saw the worry in Yiqing Luo's eyes. A hint of a smile appeared on the man's cold face. He gazed at Yiqing Luo, as his deep eyes seemed to be filled with tenderness. You're worried about me. It wasn't a question, but a statement. From Yiqing Luo, he sensed the concern in her heart. Yiqing Luo's expression didn't have much change. She opened her long and narrow eyes as she met his gaze calmly. I don't want to accept your feelings. The young lady's words were icy cold. She had rejected him cleanly. Not even a single thought was left for him. Zhu Wuexin's pitch-black eyes floated a few wisps of chilly glint, as it faintly revealed a ruthless aura. But very quickly, it was suppressed by him. Yiqing Luo, whose mind was filled with thoughts on how to reject Zhu Wuexin, didn't see this detail. This sentence was actually not a lie to agitate Zhu Wuexin. She wasn't willing to accept Zhu Wuexin's feelings, because she didn't want to have too much to do with him. The minute he really got injured or paid any price for her, she was afraid that she would feel a tiny bit of guilt towards Zhu Wuexin. She didn't need this chance to feel guilty. Her heart was very soft. It could only accommodate Dmo Shin alone. The smile on Zhu Wu Xian's face slowly faded, as he regained his usual grave and stern look. However, his gaze was still fixated on her, without blinking. Then, his thin lips moved slightly as he calmly changed the topic. Only I can help you here. Not waiting for Yiqing Luo to reply, he continued, Don't be in a hurry to reject me. After all, I also want to get out of here alive. Yiqing Luo's words were stuck in her throat. Because of her, Chu Wuxin had entered Huang Wuyo's sealed land. Whether it was her wish or not, it was already a fact that Chu Wuxin was standing there. Nothing else would be of any use now. She acted alone. He might as well stay with Zhu Wuxin. Now, old man Sung wasn't here. There were many things that she did not understand, but Zhu Wuxin did. After staying silent for a moment, Yiqing Luo didn't have any intention to reject Zhu Wu Xian following by her side. She retreated a little further away from the man, tried her best to avoid being too close to him and being contaminated by his scent. Her pink lips moved slightly, and she said silently, Do you know what this is? Chu Wuxin nodded. Yiqing Luo replied, Then do you know of any way to destroy this array? Zhu Wuxin shook his head. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips as the glint in her eyes dimmed. The next moment, Zhu Wu Xian raised his hand and touched her. An icy cold touch brushed past her hand. Chapter 5200. Yiqing Luo was still puzzled over why Zhu Wu Xian's hand was so cold when she heard his icy cold voice entering her ears. Look over there. Yiqing Luo subconsciously raised her eyes as she followed Zhu Wu Xian's gaze. Over 100 coffins began to sway slowly, bit by bit. The extent of the swaying was very big. If one didn't look carefully, one wouldn't be able to detect it. Yiqing Luo wanted to ask Zhu Wu Xian why his hand was cold, but she instantly threw it to the back of her mind. She stared unblinkingly at the hundreds of coffins. She didn't notice it, while her attention was fully focused on the coffins. The brows of the man beside her, who was as cold as cast, sank slightly. His crow's feather lashes covered the dark storm beneath his eyes. His arms hung down slightly, and under his wide red sleeves, his 5 fingers were clenched into a fist. If it didn't sense wrongly. Earlier, Yiqing Luo was worried about him, but it was merely because of the movement of the coffins. She had completely isolated him from the outside world. If it was anyone else, there was no need to use Dmo Xian as a comparison. Even if it was any member of her mercenary group, any unknown character, she would probably be more concerned until she ascertained that the other party was really fine before she could be at ease to pay attention to other matters. In her heart, he totally didn't exist at all. Yiqing Luo didn't notice the change in Zhu Wu Xian's emotions. She could vaguely feel the cool yin qi behind her. She assumed that this was because she was in Huang Wuyu's sealed grounds and the surroundings were filled with dense yin qi. It was normal to feel the yin qi. The hundreds of coffins in front started to sway slightly, but slowly, the frequency of the swaying increased. In the end, it became violent swaying. Yiqing Luo could even hear the sound of the coffins hitting the ground. But when the coffins were shaking violently, the orderly undead corpse puppets still hadn't appeared. This also meant that this kind of swaying was within the normal operating range. While the coffins were shaking, Yiqing Luo saw wave after wave of black-red liquid surging up to the top of the coffins. Wasn't that the liquid which the corpse puppets poured into the coffins? At this moment, the black-red liquid was boiling in the coffins. From time to time, it entered Yiqing Luo's eyes. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she seemed to understand the reason for the coffin's shaking. It was as if, because of the boiling liquid in the coffin, even the coffin was shaking. What exactly was that liquid? How could it create such a strong boiling point? Even the coffin can shake. Furthermore, just now, it was the black and red liquid that weaved the flesh and blood of the living people hanging on the sharp hooks into a blood net. Yiqing Luo had a rough guess in her heart. Perhaps this coffin and the living person with the sharp hook were just tools in a race. But the real thing that gathered the array and cultivated the bloodthirsty art was the dark red liquid. The liquid was the true condensation of the cultivation technique. Using the blood web as a thread, it poured into Huang Wuyo's seal and became the crux of Huang Wuyo's strength. That's a medicine concocted by combining the profound jade heart of a newborn profound practitioner with a forbidden curse. Behind her, the man explained in a low voice. While Yiqing Luo's attention was placed on the coffin, the distance between them was a little too close. When he said that, his voice was very soft, but it clearly entered Yiqing Luo's ears. When Yiqing Luo heard that, her eyelashes trembled slightly. Chapter 52:01. A newborn profound cultivator's profound heart jade? There is only one way to obtain a newborn profound cultivator's profound heart jade. That was dig out the heart and snatch the jade. This Huang Wuyo was probably really deranged. He didn't even let the babies off. Yiqing Luo admitted that she wasn't considered as a good person, but she would absolutely not destroy her worldview, just for her own benefit without caring about anything else. Huang Wuyo, this kind of scum, was so scum that it angered even the gods. That black-red liquid was refined from that cultivator's profound heart jade. This obviously wasn't the first batch, and Huang Wuyo was able to grow stronger step by step to his current state. Apparently, he had already started on this method. Such a huge project. How many cultivators have been sacrificed? How many babies, how many innocent lives have been lost? Yiqing Luo's eyes started to fill with a cold malevolence and anger. Don't be angry. Chu Wuxian's eyes drooped slightly as he looked at the young lady in front of him who was emitting a cold intent. No matter how angry you are, acting rashly is of no use. I have an idea. When Yiqing Luo said this, a cold glint flashed past her eyes. Her pink lips curled frivolously, but that arc was bone-chilling. I need your help. Chu Wuxian's thin lips curled slightly. What do you want me to do? Yiqing Luo's gaze shot towards the violently shaking coffin. Looking at the blood web, the cold arc on her lips turned gloomier. I think it's very simple, but... She paused for a moment, and her voice was clear. With your ability, are you able to hide from Huang Wuyo after he discovers you? You want me to attract his attention? Chu Wuxian asked. What do you want to do? Yiqing Luo nodded. I have my own ways to deal with Huang Wuyo. Her curly long eyelashes fluttered like a butterfly's wings, concealing her eyes and the emotions on her face. She said calmly, even if I'm unable to stop Huang Wuyo from breaking the seal, I will definitely make him suffer a heavy injury. Chu Wuxian remained silent for a moment. That pair of deep black eyes congealed on that young lady's gorgeous face. That scorching, deep gaze. After a long time, he spat out a word. All right. His words fell. Yiqing Luo only felt a cool breeze caressing her face. Then, a red shadow flashed past. The man's figure had already disappeared before the young girl's eyes. In the blink of an eye, panicked footsteps and the sounds of fighting could be heard from the other end of the coffin. The surging mysterious Qi suddenly surged forward. Looks like Huang Wuyo was also attracted by Zhu Wuxin. Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes squinted dangerously as her body moved swiftly and stepped into the coffin. Hundreds of coffins shook the ground. Yiqing Luo felt as though her own body was swaying along with the vibration of the coffin. He stepped into the coffin. Yiqing Luo could see the situation in the coffin. White bones could be vaguely seen in the boiling black and red liquid. Moreover, the bones piled up took up at least half of the entire coffin. This obviously showed exactly how many profounders were buried within these coffins. At a close distance, Yiqing Luo also saw that on top of the boiling black-red liquid, there were many fine granules floating. The liquid was boiling too fast. Yiqing Luo didn't really see it. She could roughly see those fine granules piling up one by one, forming a blood web which covered the entire cave. Chapter 52:02. It was these things. She drew out all the blood water which was soaked in the black-red liquid in all the coffins. It was these things which gathered the energy from this sinister cultivation method onto Huang Wuyo's body. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed a faint cold glint. She could hear the sounds of fighting coming from not too far away. She didn't think any further. With a sweep of her fingers, she took out several exquisite porcelain bottles from the profound phoenix ring. She took a look at the porcelain bottles and opened the bottle cap. A rich medicinal fragrance assaulted her nostrils. Yiqing Luo held the bottle and quickly poured it into the coffins. Her speed was very fast. As she took out the bottle from the profound phoenix ring, she moved around the coffins and poured the medicine in the bottle, no matter if it was in liquid or powder, into the coffins. But in an instant, she couldn't find the bottle anymore. Yiqing Luo calculated silently in her heart. Out of those hundreds of coffins, she had poured about 50 to 60 of them. Looking at the empty porcelain bottles in the profound phoenix ring, Lin Fan felt a chill run down his spine. Yiqing Luo's heart was in extreme pain. This was simply a huge loss. All the various poisons which she had refined and brought along with her, just in case, were all poured into the coffins. Among them were many poisons which were refined from extremely precious poisonous herbs. If these poisons weren't able to poison Huang Wuyo to death, she would vomit blood. Yes, poison. From knowing the connection between Heavenly Yin blood-devouring technique and Huang Wuyo, she had an idea. If these blood webs were the source of Huang Wuyo's energy, she was unable to destroy this array. Then, what about contaminating the blood webs? The blood webs which had been corroded by the poison entered Huang Wuyo's seal and was absorbed by Huang Wuyo. All the poison entered Huang Wuyo's body. Could it affect Huang Wuyo's body? Even if it couldn't kill Huang Wuyo, at least it would make him lose the power to create trouble. After Yiqing Luo finished pouring the poison, she speedily headed towards the direction of the battle. She wasn't too clear about Zhu Wuxian's ability, but Zhu Wuxian had created such a huge commotion. The minute Huang Wuyo made a move, it would be hard for him to escape. After she settled this, she had to remind Zhu Wuxian to avoid Huang Wuyo and wait for the poison to take effect. The dense and dark mysterious Yin Qi rolled like clouds, lingering in the air of the tunnel in waves, as if it could freeze the air. After smelling the Qi of mysterious Yin, the expressionless undead corpse puppets became increasingly frenzied as they attacked the invaders. The man's red robe fluttered in the wind. As his robes fluttered, he did not give the undead corpse puppets a chance to touch him. The corpse puppets let out low moans, which sounded like the roars of wild beasts, but also like strange howls. Anyone who heard it would feel their hairs stand on end. Oh, isn't this young Master Chu? No, I should call him Pavilion Master Chu of the Red Clarity Pavilion now. A sinister and treacherous voice approached from afar. The corpses surrounding Zhu Wuxin instantly scattered to the sides. Zhu Wuxin stopped his attack, stood with his hands behind his back, and looked ahead expressionlessly. When the corpse puppets respectfully opened up a path, they saw a man dressed in black like a specter, taking steady steps as he walked over with an imposing manner. His footsteps were neither fast nor slow. That face looked warm, but it was polluted by the sinister emotions between his brows, looking like it was filled with viciousness, making it hard to get close. Chapter 5203. When Zhu Wuxian saw that man, he wasn't surprised at all. His eyes were calm as he met the other party's gaze calmly. One cold, one evil. Both their auras clashed against each other, as though it could overturn the entire tunnel. Pavilion Master Chu seems to be devoted to this seat's obedient daughter. The man's tone was filled with ridicule, with hints of malicious ridicule. For her, you gave up your own benefits and betrayed the collaboration with this seat. Now for her, you dare to appear in front of this seat. The man sneered. Do you really think this seat doesn't dare to kill you? Secluded Palace. The mastermind. Zhu Wuxian looked at the man in front of him, that clear but vicious face. From his facial features, he could vaguely see Yiqing Luo's shadow. Yiqing Luo looked more like Fengge, but it wasn't hard to tell that the man in front of him was Yiqing Luo's father. This was the first time Zhu Wuxian met the mastermind of Secluded Palace, who was Huang Wuyo himself. All along, The collaboration with Secluded Palace. The one who negotiated was mostly Gu Jingyu, that palace lord of Secluded Palace. At most, he had heard Huang Wuyo's voice and had a conversation with him. Upon hearing Huang Wuyo's voice, Chu Wuxian recognized the other party. Huang Wuyo walked towards Zhu Wuxian and stood in front of him as his lips curled into a sinister arc. Pavilion Master Chu, you suddenly lost contact and canceled the collaboration between Red Clear Pavilion and Secluded Palace. These losses, Pavilion Master Chu has yet to compensate this seat. This seat has been looking for you for a very long time. I not expected you to send yourself to my doorstep. Huang Wuyo gave a low and deep laugh. That laughter was mixed with a sinister feeling which made one's hair stand on end. Zhu Wuxian allowed Huang Wuyo to laugh and allowed him to ridicule him. It was until Huang Wuyo stopped when he opened his mouth expressionlessly. Yiqing Luo, I must bring her away. Huang Wuyo laughed even more exaggeratedly. After laughing, he then opened his mouth to ridicule. Pavilion Master Chu, since you like this seat's daughter so much, why not? This seat helped you make the decision and betrothed my daughter to you. How about that? The smile on his lips was filled with even more malice. Looking at Zhu Wuxian's emotional face, he continued, Pavilion Master Chu, in any case, we are old friends. If the two of us join hands, let alone the immortal realm, even the other great realms will be ours. Since you like Luo, I will betroth Luo to you, and you will take Luo, and live with me forever. Ambition and love are all there now. Isn't this perfect? You can't control Yiqing Luo. Zhu Wuxian opened his mouth calmly. She doesn't like me, and also hates your existence. A stubborn lady like Yiqing Luo. How could it be as Huang Wuyo had said? Just because you say so? Most importantly, he was very clear on Yiqing Luo's hatred towards Zhu Wuxian. Yiqing Luo loved her mother deeply. Feng Ji's death was caused by Huang Wuyo. Under such hatred, Huang Wuyo was still attempting to control Yiqing Luo's future, not to mention what methods Huang Wuyo was intending to use to force Yiqing Luo to submit. It was impossible for him to agree to it. If being overbearing was useful, he wouldn't have waited till now. He didn't want to see Yiqing Luo's disappointed gaze towards him. He also didn't want to see Yiqing Luo's eyes filled with hatred when she saw him. Chapter 5204. You're really a coward. Huang Wuyo laughed sinisterly. If you like her, then you should snatch her away and make her your own. Zhu Wuxian ignored his ridicule as he replied expressionlessly, If you really understand feelings, then you wouldn't be so lonely. Zhu Wuxian's words made Huang Wuyo's laughter stop abruptly. Huang Wuyo's face, which was filled with hostility, was now filled with a sinister and terrifying emotion. His gaze was sinister and filled with murderous intent. Who says I'm lonely? I was born to be the main god who stands above all the realms. And the path of the strong doesn't allow anyone else. Every single word and sentence was spat out clearly, as though he was saying it to Zhu Wuxian, or as though he was saying it to himself. Zhu Wuxian looked at the raging Huang Wuyo calmly, as there wasn't any fluctuation of emotions between his brows. His thin lips moved slightly as he spat out the words. If you're really not lonely, then there wouldn't be Gu Jingyu's appearance, and there wouldn't be Linglong's existence. Huang Wuyo's pupils constricted abruptly. As though his thoughts were seen through, his embarrassment turned into anger as his tail was stepped on as his face surfaced. He flicked his sleeves as a thick black profound Yin-Chi surged towards Zhu Wuxian's face like a surging wave. What do you know? I kept Gu Jingyu alive because he's useful. As for Linglong, that lass. Huang Wuyo's eyes were sinister and cold as it flashed past. I just want to test if my daughter is real. Only Yiqing Luo fulfills my requirements. Zhu Wuxian's sleeves fluttered as his blazing red robe seemed to be burning in flames. It also brought with it a chilling coldness. It easily separated Huang Wuyo's black yin energy from his body. Zhu Wuxian's eyes were calm, without any fluctuations. I'm not interested in what your motive is. His cold voice was like an emotionless killer. Following that, A sliver of determination surfaced in his pitch-black cold eyes. His thin lips moved. "I'm different from you. I don't wish to see her getting hurt." The cold man's words were sincere. It was because the mastermind of the secluded palace was Yi Qing Luo's father. Otherwise, Zhu Wuexin wouldn't have the patience to bother about him. Of course, there was another important point. He had to fight for time for Yi Qing Luo. Since Pavilion Master Chu doesn't appreciate my kind intentions, then don't blame me for disregarding our past cooperation. Huang Wuyo's originally complacent and sinister mood had been easily crushed by Zhu Wuxin, leaving only a belly full of rage. As he waved his palm, the profound yin qi gathered from all directions. The entire underground passage began to shake violently. Zhu Wuxin was just about to wave his sleeves to block Huang Wuyo's attack. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of a young girl who was quietly approaching him. His deep eyes dimmed slightly. In the next instant, his power weakened. A burst of profound light shot out and reflected Huang Wuyo's attack. However, the remaining power shook and landed heavily on his chest. The two forces collided with each other in the cave, creating intense electric currents. Zhu Wuexin's body abruptly took a few steps back, swaying unsteadily on his feet. Huang Wuyo was still puzzled. Why did his opponent suddenly retract his strength? Was this some kind of new scheme? Just as he was thinking about this, he saw a peach-red figure reflected into his eyes. Just as Zhu Wuexin was about to fall onto the ground, Yi Qing Luo walked up quickly and supported Zhu Wuexin. She frowned as she looked at Zhu Wuexin. "Are you all right?" Zhu Wuexin's pitch-black eyes met the young girl's gaze deeply. Chapter 52:05. Almost greedily staring at the young lady's devastatingly beautiful face, which was just inches away from him. Perhaps it was because his gaze was too scorching. After the young lady helped him to stand firm, she retracted her hand. Zhu Wuexin's thin lips twitched as the expression on his face was as cold as water. "I'm fine." Although that was the case. But when he spoke, his tone was slightly heavy with a slight panting, as though he was suppressing some kind of emotion. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she stared at Zhu Wuexin's grave and stern face, totally unable to see any expression on it. Pausing for a moment, then her brows creased as she placed her hand on his body once again. "Don't force yourself." Feeling the girl's warm and soft hand on his arm, he felt a chill run down his spine. Although it was just a simple touch, Zhu Wuexin's heart seemed to be covered by something soft. His thin lips curled into an arc as he slightly leaned his weight on Yi Qing Luo's body. Yi Qing Luo's brows creased even tighter as she took a glance at the man who was leaning on her, his breathing slightly congealed. Her frown wasn't because Zhu Wuexin was leaning too close. But Zhu Wuexin's injury was obviously not light. If it was usual times, based on Zhu Wuexin's temperament, he would rather forcefully hold on than to let her discover it. Unless he couldn't hold on any longer. Huang Wuyo's earlier strike looked like it wasn't light. Yi Qing Luo's long and narrow eyes narrowed coldly as she looked at Huang Wuyo, who was surrounded by the profound yin qi and was entangled by the thick black fog. She didn't discover anything. Leaning on her shoulder, that cold and emotionless man's lips curled slightly as he revealed a smile. On one side, he slowly got closer to the young lady. "My obedient daughter, so you're hiding here. You made me look for you." When Huang Wuyo saw Yi Qing Luo, his eyes lit up with a faint flame. Under the wrapping of this profound yin qi, like a poisonous snake, it coiled around Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo gazed at Huang Wuyo as she scoffed. "You can't even find anyone in your territory. Looks like as a spiritual consciousness, you're very weak." The young lady's tone was filled with ridicule. The corners of her eyes lifted, revealing a cold and mocking arc. Huang Wuyo's face darkened as he launched an attack with his palm. "My dear daughter, I will let you know the price of angering me." The whirlwind, carrying with it a majestic and thick mysterious yin qi, attacked head-on. Yi Qing Luo's slender fingers moved slightly as her fingertips flicked. Bang, bang, bang. A streak of blazing red glow followed the arc of Yi Qing Luo's fingertip as it swept past. Wave after wave of explosions resounded throughout the tunnel, like the rumbling of thunder. The tunnel trembled again. Yi Qing Luo supported Zhu Wu Xian as they took 2 steps back. She glanced sideways at Zhu Wuxin's cold and pale face and asked in a low voice, "Can you still move?" "I'm fine." Zhu Wuxin shook his head gently, and his tone was very soft. But with that pale face, it didn't look like he was fine. Yi Qing Luo took a look at the raging Huang Wuyo, and then looked at Zhu Wu Xian. His brain was spinning rapidly, trying to think of a way. Zhu Wu Xian's palm, which was on the young lady's wrist, tightened his grip. He coughed lightly, with a weak posture. "Your plan, has it failed?" "I don't know." Yi Qing Luo shook her head. "But now, you're injured, so we can't stay here. We must think of a way to avoid Huang Wuyo." Zhu Wu Xian's thin lips moved, as though he was thinking of something. But finally, he pursed his lips as he slowly got up from leaning on Yi Qing Luo. "I'm really fine. Don't worry about me." Chapter 52:06. Now isn't the time to be stubborn. After all, you got injured because of me, so how can I not care about you? Yi Qing Luo held on to Zhu Wu Xian's hand once again. Her tone didn't have much fluctuation of emotions. Her pair of charming eyes looked towards Huang Wuyo's direction vigilantly. Because of that, she didn't notice the man beside her gradually darkening expression because of her words. Not abandoning him meant that in her heart, she still cared about him. But this kind of care was merely based on the fact that he got injured because of her. What he wanted was Yi Qing Luo's sincerity. If it was anyone else, would she treat him so coldly? The relationship between the two of you seems to be not bad. Huang Wuyo's voice broke the silence between the both of them once again. His sinister voice was filled with malice, as though he was mocking, yet as though he was scheming something. "Pavilion Master Chu, this obedient daughter of mine has deep feelings for you, isn't it? Earlier my suggestion, why don't you reconsider?" Huang Wuyo laughed softly. "If Pavilion Master Chu agrees to it, I believe, I will absolutely not disappoint you." His laughter was sinister and treacherous. It made one's hair stand on end just from hearing it. Zhu Wu Xian's expression turned cold as his eyes turned icy cold, like a sharp blade piercing over. Before he could open his mouth, the young lady had already pressed down on his shoulder lightly. Following that, her clear and cold voice rang. "Huang Wuyo, your move to sow discord is very low level." She tilted her head as her eyes were filled with ridicule towards Huang Wuyo, indeed someone who had been sealed for thousands of years. Until now, still playing this kind of low-level and senseless tricks. Huang Wuyo said this to Chu Wu Xian in front of her. Wasn't he trying to provoke her suspicions towards Zhu Wu Xian? Once she started to suspect Zhu Wu Xian, then in this tunnel, she would be alone. By then, it would be much easier to deal with her. As for Zhu Wu Xian, after being suspected by her, he could only choose to agree to Huang Wuyo's deal and collaboration. That's a good plan. However, this also proved one thing. Huang Wuyo seemed to have a little fear towards Zhu Wu Xian. Otherwise, with Huang Wuyo's arrogant and conceited personality, he wouldn't be able to do anything to him. How could he play such a trick to sow discord? Was he trying to make her lose Zhu Wuxin? As expected of my daughter, you are indeed smart. Huang Wuyo did not show any embarrassment at being exposed. Instead, he laughed out loud. That sinister laughter inexplicably made people feel uncomfortable all over. His venomous, snake-like gaze stared deeply at Yi Qing Luo as he grinned maliciously. "The two of you have such a strong relationship. This seat naturally wants the both of you to stay by this seat side." He slowly raised his arms. The color of the surging mysterious yin qi became darker and darker. Immediately after, a violent hurricane was stirred up in all directions. The whistling was so sharp that it seemed like it could engulf a person. In the land of the hurricane, the thick black fog gathered into layers and layers. It formed a large black fog. It gathered above Huang Wuyo's head. Huang Wuyo's arms were raised extremely high as his black robe swayed along with his energy, as his jet black hair danced wildly. His power has become stronger again. Zhu Wuxian sensed that Huang Wuyo's aura was becoming stronger bit by bit. His expression changed slightly as he clasped the young lady's wrist. Chapter 5207. He should have used the devouring blood technique to inject energy into his body. Zhu Wuxian pulled her behind him. Leave first. I'll think of a way to stop him. Zhu Wuxian was about to move when he was stopped by the young lady. Yiqing Luo shook her head at him as her narrow eyes squinted slightly, staring at Huang Wuyo's direction. Don't stop him. Let's take this chance to leave first. Huang Wuyo's original body had absorbed all sorts of poisonous medicinal liquid. This piece of soul consciousness which belonged to Huang Wuyo would also be affected. The more Huang Wuyo absorbed, the more the poison invaded. She couldn't stop him, but Yiqing Luo didn't dare to guarantee that her guess was correct. So while Huang Wuyo was still absorbing the energy from the devouring blood technique, she and Zhu Wuxian took the opportunity to leave Huang Wuyo's line of sight and make a decision based on the situation. The two of them prepared to leave quietly. Huang Wuyo's gaze was sharp as he sneered towards the direction of the two and shot out a burst of profound qi. Trying to escape? The two words had just left his mouth. Huang Wuyo was suspended in midair as his body, which was absorbing the energy, suddenly fell downwards. A dawn sound was heard. His soul consciousness was in human form, so when it fell onto the ground, it gave off a huge sound of a heavy object landing on the ground. Yiqing Luo's eyes rose as her pink lips curved slightly. Success. She pulled Zhu Wuxian to a halt as she turned her head back. She saw Huang Wuyo half kneeling on the ground with his back bent. One hand was pressed on his knee while the other was pressed on the ground. Probably sensing the two's gaze, Huang Wuyo suddenly raised his head as he stared furiously at Yiqing Luo. You? What did you do to me? He bellowed furiously. He was panting heavily and sweating profusely. That body which was formed from his soul consciousness was vaguely distorted in the profound qi. It dissipated and gathered again and again, as though something was twisting inside his body, as though it was going to tear his body apart and tear him into pieces. His soul consciousness became fainter and fainter, as though it was going to be annihilated any time. Yiqing Luo sized Huang Wuyo up to confirm if he was pretending on purpose. Then, she nudged Zhu Wuxin. Isn't his aura very messy now? Zhu Wuxin's strength was above hers. His ability to sense Huang Wuyo's aura was also more accurate than hers. Zhu Wuxin closed his eyes and carefully sensed for a while. Finally, he nodded slightly. Yes. He paused and looked at Huang Wuyo, but his words were directed at Yiqing Luo. What did you do to him? Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she looked at Huang Wuyo's gradually turning greenish-black lips and that face, which was gradually turning greenish-black. Her pink lips curled up slightly. It seems that my guess is correct. It was not in vain that she had poured all the poison in her body into the black and red liquid. Dozens of poisons mixed together. The poison wouldn't kill him. It would also take half of his life. Feng Qing Luo. Huang Wuyo gnashed his teeth in anger. He was shocked and angry at the same time. He struggled to get up. What did you do to me? However, the intense pain in his body caused him to fall heavily onto the ground again. He glowered. His body was behaving in such a strange way. Feng Qing Luo must have done something secretly. Yiqing Luo's brows rose slightly as her expression was indifferent. She didn't show any emotion towards Huang Wuyo's flustered and exasperated look. She didn't show any complacency just because Huang Wuyo had fallen for her trick. But the calmer she was, the more furious Huang Wuyo was, the more furious he felt. Yiqing Luo smiled. Don't you know everything? Why do you need to ask me? Chapter 5208. Huang Wuyo's breathing became heavier. The excruciating pain in his body felt like he was being sliced into pieces. Perhaps it was because he was poisoned or because he was too angry, but his complexion was ashen. Finally, he gave Yiqing Luo a cold stare. Then he punched the ground. The tens of thousands of hurricanes and mysterious qi intertwined, wrapping around Huang Wuyo's entire body. Whoosh! He fled into the distance. Yiqing Luo's pink lips rose as she held onto Zhu Wuxian's arm. Go chase after them. Both of them were extremely fast. At this critical juncture, Yiqing Luo didn't hide the fact that she knew the secret of teleportation. Pulling Zhu Wuxian along, he executed the instant movement secret technique and quickly followed behind Huang Wuyo. Zhu Wuxian seemed to have known long ago, or perhaps he did not understand the teleportation secret technique. While he was being pulled by Yiqing Luo, all kinds of teleportation, he did not show the slightest hint of surprise. Yiqing Luo was leaning towards the former. The teleportation secret art was an ancient secret art to protect the secrets of the Azure Dew bracelet and the Purgatory Pagoda. She basically wouldn't use it in front of outsiders. Moreover, every time he was discovered using it, he would feel a chill down his spine. It would cause a great backlash from the other party. Given Zhu Wuxian's status and identity, it was impossible for him not to have heard of the teleportation secret technique. He wasn't surprised, probably because he already knew. Of course, that was not the point. Yiqing Luo pulled Zhu Wuxian, turning left and right, jumping up and down. He stared at Huang Wuyo the entire way. Then, the mysterious yin qi that was wrapped around Huang Wuyo suddenly crashed into a huge stone door and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Zhu Wuxian stretched out his hand and grabbed Yiqing Luo's arm. Don't go over, there's an array. Yiqing Luo had already stopped her blink movement when Huang Wuyo disappeared from the stone door in front. She narrowed her eyes and looked at the stone door in front of her. The dense, mysterious yin qi in the air was trying to seep into their bodies bit by bit. However, it was blocked by an invisible ray of profound light. Yiqing Luo was very sensitive to the profound yin qi. It was almost certain. Behind a stone door, that was where Huang Wuyo's main body was. In other words, this is the place, it was where Huang Wuyo was sealed. She hooked her lower lip. When she poisoned him, she had already guessed that this would happen. Once the poison flared up, Huang Wuyo's divine sense would naturally return to his body. As for Huang Wuyo's physical body, it should have been eroded even more by the poison. Hence, he could no longer control his spiritual consciousness. Therefore, his divine sense would be returned to his body. She would use this opportunity to find the location of Huang Wuyo's seal. At this time, Huang Wuyo was being corroded by dozens of poisons. All she had to do was find a way to enter the formation. The chances of sealing Huang Wuyo would be even higher. Of course, how was he supposed to break this formation? How long can his situation last? Zhu Wuxian glanced sideways and asked. Yiqing Luo shook her head. I'm not sure, it depends on how strong Huang Wuyo is. Zhu Wuxian slightly lowered his eyes and did not speak again. What's wrong? You're worried that Huang Wuyo's weak period is very short? Yiqing Luo sensed that Zhu Wuxian's emotions weren't quite right as she raised her eyes to look at him. The man's icy cold eyes were surging with emotions, flowing with a complicated glint which Yiqing Luo couldn't understand. Yiqing Luo was just about to open her mouth. Suddenly, the entire tunnel started to shake. A burst of vigorous and powerful energy with a large number of people suddenly closed in. A loud bam was heard. Yiqing Luo felt the ground shaking violently. At the next instant, her waist tightened as she was pulled by Zhu Wuxian. With a leap, she avoided the surging profound rays. Chapter 5209. After Yiqing Luo steadied herself, she immediately stretched out her hand and pushed Zhu Wuxian away as she looked towards the direction of the attack. In the spacious tunnel, about 20 teams suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Yiqing Luo's gaze fell directly onto the leader of the team, Ji Rao. It was a woman dressed in a long, moon-white dress with an ethereal air about her. The woman's face was exquisite and could be considered a peerless beauty. Her beautiful eyes were filled with a cold glint and a bit of complacency. There was a feeling of looking down at Yiqing Luo from a higher position, the kind of feeling of being high above. The lady's line of sight fell onto Yiqing Luo and slowly fell onto the red-robed man behind her. Her red lips curled up, revealing a malicious smile. Just as he was about to say something, suddenly, her smile froze, and her expression darkened as she stared at Zhu Wuxin. The words that were on the tip of his tongue stopped. Yiqing Luo frowned as she turned her head towards Zhu Wuxian. The man's expression was calm, and it was impossible to tell whether he was happy or angry. She shifted her gaze to the woman again. He was still thinking about the relationship between Zhu Wuxin and Nu Rao. Hearing that woman's ridiculing tone, with a hint of disdain in her laughter, Fengqing Luo, I thought you were really loyal to the Overlord. Taking advantage of the fact that His Majesty isn't here, you're here flirting with other women. She sneered. If the Overlord knew that you were meeting with a man in such a place, would the Overlord still love you so much? The woman's voice was clear and pleasant to the ears. However, it was not difficult to hear the jealousy in her tone. Clear dove. Yiqing Luo's pink lips moved slightly as she called out the woman's name. Whether Axian will still pamper me, I don't know. Her smile grew even wider as she met the woman's provocative gaze and said word by word. But I know that you absolutely cannot enter Axian's eyes. Who else could it be other than Qingge? This clear pigeon was the one which Yiqing Luo had snuck into the Palace of Gloom's secret underground chamber from the Jiang family's side when she was in God Realm. There, he met the woman. It seemed like his position in the Palace of Gloomy Darkness was not low. Most importantly, she had ulterior motives for Dmo Xian, a so-called princess who belonged to an unknown force. She remembered, when he was in the Palace of Darkness, she had poisoned the pigeon. Even Qing Ji's secret forces could not cure the poison. How could he be alive and kicking and run all the way here? Sure enough, a scourge lives for 1,000 years. Yiqing Luo sized up those people behind Qingge with a gaze that was sizing them up. The newcomers all had an obvious totem on their bodies. They were the people that Qingge had brought with her. They were not people from the Palace of Darkness, but people who belonged to her faction. Clear pigeon. How did he get here? What a coincidence. Just as she found the place where Huang Wuyo was sealed, he appeared with his men. Yiqing Luo had a vague guess in her heart. Qing Ji's furious voice rang. Fengqing Luo, the current you is suffering from both sides. Are you sure you want to anger this princess? When the words "this princess" came out her mouth, Qing Ji's body suddenly released a strong pressure. That condescending and disdainful stance seemed to have already trampled Yiqing Luo under his feet. Why are you here? Yiqing Luo's expression was indifferent. That pair of long and narrow eyes were calm, without any fluctuations. Of course, she didn't expect Qingge to answer her directly. She only wanted to find out some information from Qing Ji's mouth. Chapter 52:10. Qingge gave a gentle smile, but the jealousy in her eyes was unconcealable. The reason why I am here is naturally to follow you. Her tone was complacent, but the way she looked at Yiqing Luo was filled with hatred. Why do you think I'm staying in the secluded palace? Why do you think the Overlord is in the secluded palace? No matter what, it's to find the real resting place of the mastermind of the secluded palace. Qing Ji's red lips curled up complacently as she looked at Yiqing Luo's gaze, as though she was looking at a stray dog. Look at you. You've painstakingly come to the territory behind the scenes of the Palace of Darkness and finally managed to get close to the person behind the scenes. But now, everything belongs to me. Yiqing Luo's brows creased slightly as she listened to Qing Ji's words. Her heart had an ominous premonition. She had not opened her mouth. Qingge had already raised her cold and complacent smile as she interrupted her icily. You want to ask me, what do I want to do after finding the mastermind of the secluded palace, right? Her fingertips gently lifted a strand of hair which was hanging on her shoulder. That exquisite and beautiful face curled into a beautiful smile. But under that smile was a deep, vicious aura which made one shudder. I am from the Illusory clan. Illusory clan? Yiqing Luo was dumbstruck. This was the first time she heard of this clan. Zhu Wuxian's brows drooped slightly as he looked at Yiqing Luo calmly. The Illusory clan was a hidden clan 10,000 years ago, specializing in illusory arts and divination. Divination. Yi Qing Luo's brows twitched. Chu Wu Xian continued, and 10,000 years ago, the mastermind of the secluded palace was the revered, carefree Huang Wuyo. In an attempt to find out the meaning, to fight with the Tao, to dominate all living things. Hence, revered carefree went to look for the Illusory clan. Indeed, Yi Qing Luo's guess was settled as her brows creased slightly. Chu Wu Xian continued. The Illusory clan originally predicted the future and changed their fate, so they had to pay the same price. No one in the Illusory clan could live past 35 years old. Because of this, the Illusion tribe rarely do things like predicting the future and changing fate. When revered carefree sought out the Illusory tribe, naturally, he was rejected by them. When Zhu Wu Xian mentioned the history of the Illusion race, Qing Ji's expression darkened. There was no longer any pride or jealousy. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips. Her voice was very low, and after the rejection, how could the high and mighty revered carefree allow someone to reject him? Zhu Wuxin's tone was still icy cold, but there was a hint of mockery in it. Yi Qing Luo subconsciously looked towards Zhu Wu Xian. However, there was not the slightest bit of emotion on the man's grave and stern face. His face was cold and emotionless. However, human nature is inferior. With an expressionless face, Zhu Wu Xian continued. In this world, there are no absolute good people. A portion of the Illusory clan was unwilling to do such an unreasonable thing for revered carefree. But there were also a portion of the Illusory clan who, under the enticement of revered carefree, exposed their own wild ambitions. Regarding the current God Emperor's daughter is the chosen one, the Phoenix Lady who descended, after such a prophecy appeared. All the tragedies began. Chapter 52:11. Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes trembled slightly. This was also her mother's tragedy, her appearance. It was all because of this prophecy. As for Huang Wuyo, he had plotted so much, just for this prophecy, which Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled into a cold arc as the ridicule in her eyes deepened. She should laugh at herself for being such a sacred and noble existence in the prophecy. Or should she laugh at Huang Wuyo for the so-called prophecy he sacrificed? But revered Wuyo didn't let the Illusory clan off just because he knew about the prophecy. Zhu Wu Xian's clear voice was heard again. After those ambitious people from the Illusory clan tried their best to help him, just to obtain a way to live forever. Zhu Wu Xian paused. Qing Ji's gentle voice continued. In order to protect this prophecy, only he alone knew about it, so he exterminated the Illusory clan. This was indeed something that Huang Wuyo would do. The Illusory clan lived. This prophecy would be known by others one day. Once the prophecy was known, the Emperor of God would be watched by countless people. How could he possibly tolerate any deviation in his plans? So the best way was kill anyone other than him who knew about this prophecy, which was to exterminate the Illusory clan. Qing Ji's eyes were burning with a raging flame. Her fingers clenched tightly as she looked at Yi Qing Luo with hatred and anger. I am for the Illusory clan. Our Illusory tribe was annihilated because of your father. 10,000 years ago, when Huang Wuyo's clan was exterminated, the princess of the Illusory clan had to pay respects to their ancestors and had to guard the grave for 3 months. Along with them were dozens of followers from the Illusory clan, and it was this batch of people. They became the last bloodline of the Illusory clan. The princess used the Illusory clan's ability to find out about this matter. She swore to find Huang Wuyo and seek revenge for the Illusory clan. After 10,000 years, the people from the Illusory clan now, only them were left. And most of them were no longer pure bloodline of the Illusory clan. Even the current princess of the Illusory clan, Qinggu, was not pure bloodline of the Illusory clan. Listening to everything about the Illusory clan, Yi Qing Luo's expression didn't have much fluctuation of emotions. She lifted her eyelids and looked at Qinggu. Firstly, that man, although he is my biological father, he is also my enemy. Secondly, although Huang Wuyo played a major role in the extermination of the Illusion clan, part of the reason was that the ancestors of the Illusion clan made a wrong move due to their obsession with longevity. She paused, her long and narrow eyes slightly raised. From your point of view, you think that it's Huang Wuyo's fault, my mother's fault, and mine. However, from my point of view, everything is the fault of the illusory race. Qing Ji's face turned ashen and her delicate face contorted. Our illusion tribe was annihilated by revered Wu Yu. Is this still our fault? Then, because of a prophecy from your illusion tribe, my mother was deceived by Huang Wuyo. In the end, for the sake of the world, she used her life to seal him. Isn't this all because of your illusory tribe? There was no right or wrong in this matter. It just depended on whose point of view one was standing on. Yiqing Luo's counter-question made Qing Ji's mouth move, but she couldn't spit out a single word of rebuttal. Her fists clenched even tighter as each of her fingers started to turn pale. Chapter 52:12. Yiqing Luo didn't pursue this topic any further. This answer was something that she would never be able to get. She pursed her lips and looked at Qinggu faintly. From the looks of it, our goal is the same. Who has the same goal as you? Qing Ji's expression was cold as her exquisite brows were filled with disgust. I don't intend to let you seal him. What do you mean? Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. Qinggu snorted lightly as her fingertips played with her hair. Didn't revered Wu Yu want to complete the prophecy from 10,000 years ago, and get this, so he caused the death of our illusory clan? Her red lips curled sinisterly. If he wants to complete it, then I shall grant him his wish. But Qing Ji's face was distorted from laughter. I want to be above him and become his master. Listening to Qing Ji's words, Yiqing Luo felt that she had been driven crazy. To think that he could not think straight and wanted to dominate Huang Wuyo. Did Huang Wuyo look like that kind of person who could be manipulated by others? Don't think that I am crazy. Qinggu raised her chin as she gave an unusually strange smile. I am, after all, the princess of the illusory clan and the one with the highest innate talent. Her vision looked towards the stone cave where Huang Wuyo was sealed. As long as he still has the ambition to break the seal, I will use the illusory clan's illusory arts to control him. Qinggu said as she looked at Yiqing Luo complacently. Get up, for me and my clansmen to be able to come here and gain the absolute advantage. It's all thanks to you. If I am able to succeed, I will definitely thank you properly and strive for. Her voice was low and cold. I'll leave your corpse intact. Looking at Qing Ji's crazed and twisted expression, Yiqing Luo's face didn't show any signs of anger. Her expression was like water as she looked at Qinggu indifferently. There wasn't much fluctuation of emotions in her long and narrow eyes, until Qing Ji's complacent and savage laughter stopped. Yiqing Luo's eyelids moved slightly as she glanced sideways at the man in red who had been silent all this while. In her eyes, the man's cold and handsome face was reflected. The contours of the side of his face seemed to be meticulously sculpted. The lines were cold and hard, and they emitted a coldness that made one's breath stop. Yiqing Luo's curly long eyelashes were like butterfly wings gently fanning. As she looked around, he could not see the emotions in her eyes. He only felt that the girl's pink lips were slightly curved, as if she was smiling, but also as if she was mocking him. The girl's gaze was too stubborn. He had no intention of hiding it at all. Being stared at, Chu Wuxin's grave and stern face turned slightly red. He looked up and met the girl's gaze. Just as he was about to speak, he heard the girl's cold voice call out his name, Zhu Wu Exan. The girl's voice was cold and emotionless, but not gambling gave Zhu Wuxin a very heavy pressure. Immediately afterward, the young lady's clear voice continued. You agree with Sister Qing Pigeon's actions, right? Her question was flat and emotionless. It sounded like a casual conversation, but in Zhu Wuxin's ears, it was like a clap of thunder exploding beside his ears. But he was only stunned for a moment. He calmly raised his eyes as his chilly gaze met with hers. When their eyes met, both parties had no intention to avoid each other. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled up as she didn't bother about Zhu Wuxin's act, as she tilted her head slightly and propped her chin up. Chapter 52:13. I seem to have asked a unnecessary question. She laughed softly. For the illusory clan to be able to appear here, it means that we already know the answer. She smiled as her gaze was fixed on Zhu Wuxian. Since you agree with Sister Qing Ji's way of doing things, then I have nothing else to say. Zhu Wuxian's face was facing Yiqing Luo. That pair of emotionless, icy, cold black eyes were surging with a silent wave. Yiqing Luo had no intention to bother about him. She didn't have any intention to ask any further. Instead, she used her actions to express her stand. She slowly moved her feet away from Zhu Wuxian's side. She stood in between Zhu Wuxian and Qing Ge as she looked left and right. Then her lips curled as her smile was calm. My motive is to completely seal Huang Wuyu here, or kill him. There was not the slightest fluctuation in her words, as though she was talking about something extremely normal. Since our motives are different, then, it's obvious that we are enemies. The young lady's gaze was as calm as water as it met with Zhu Wuxian. Indeed, between us, we are ultimately enemies. Yiqing Luo. Zhu Wuxian's tone was slightly anxious as he called out her name. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled as she raised her hand to stop Zhu Wuxian's words. I understand, and I don't feel that you've made the wrong choice. She took a look at Zhu Wuxian and then at Qing Ge. After all, you're also from the illusory clan. Zhu Wuxian's eyelashes fluttered as his thin lips moved. In the end, he didn't reject her. But Qing Ji's complacent smile froze as she took a swift glance at Zhu Wuxian and immediately frowned. Since when is he from the illusory clan? What's with your beard coat? Isn't it? Yiqing Luo's smile became even wider as her long and narrow eyes were frivolous as she looked at Zhu Wuxian. Are you? Zhu Wuxian's pupils contracted as the surging emotions in his eyes were about to spew out. Finally, his thin lips moved as he spat out a word, yes. Yiqing Luo smiled, but that smile was filled with ridicule. Young matriarch, seeing that Zhu Wuxian had actually admitted his identity, Qing Pigeon anxiously cried out. Hearing Qing Ji's greeting, Yiqing Luo's smile deepened. It seemed that Zhu Wuxin's status in the illusion race was not low. For the princess of the illusion clan to call him young master, Zhu Wuxin lifted his eyelids and looked coldly at Qing Ge. That gaze sent a chill down Qing Ji's spine. She swallowed the words she was about to say. Zhu Wuxian's eyes calmly shifted onto Yiqing Luo. When his eyes met with Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes, his gaze was slightly evasive. But in the end, he still met Yiqing Luo's gaze firmly. He pursed his thin lips and said in a cold voice, I didn't want to hide it from you. Indeed, Yiqing Luo smiled. When you took the initiative to talk about the Mirage clan's past, it was already indirectly telling me your identity. 10,000 years ago, the Illusion clan was a hidden family. What was a hidden family? That was a clan that was hidden from the world, a clan that only existed in rumors or no rumors at all. There were details about how Huang Wuyu had sought out the Illusion tribe for a divination and how he had given a prophecy. Other than the people of the Illusion race, how could anyone else know? Zhu Wuxian took the initiative to mention about the history of the Illusion clan. He was totally telling her that he was someone from the Illusion clan. Yiqing Luo linked everything together. He could roughly guess what was going on. Chapter 52:14. Zhu Wuxin looked at the mocking smile on the young girl's face. His cold and stern face became somewhat gloomy. He seemed to be hesitating about something. In the end, he wanted to say something, but stopped. Out of the thousands of words he wanted to say, he could only say one sentence. It was a very light and somewhat untenable refutation. I'm worried about you, it's true. Yiqing Luo nodded emotionlessly. I know. She didn't deny that Zhu Wuxian was worried about her. She also didn't deny that Zhu Wuxian didn't want her to be cared for, and absolutely believed it, even if it wasn't because of the illusory clan. When Zhu Wu Xian saw her in danger, he would follow her without any hesitation, stepping into this dangerous place. But there was a motive. There was a motive after all. These so-called concern and worry. They were no longer that pure. Perhaps this was the difference between Zhu Wu Xian and Di Emotion. The former had too many things on him. No matter what he did, any decision he made, there would definitely be a motive behind it. No matter what the original intention was, no matter if he had calculated or prepared for this decision, that was ultimately not pure. The latter was wholeheartedly only for her. Even for her, he would not hesitate to destroy the world. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyelids, avoiding Zhu Wu Xian's surging black pupils. Now, let's rely on our own abilities. What else was Zhu Wu Xian thinking about? Qinggu couldn't hold it in any longer. Young Lord, don't forget about the blood feud between our illusory clan and revered Carefree. Don't forget about the country's hatred and family feud because of a woman. She clenched her fists tightly, as her eyes were filled with malevolent jealousy. Based on what? Based on what Feng Qing Luo, that woman, could have the Overlord's boundless love and Young Lord's love? Based on what? All the men revolved around her. Even if she was the descendant of the previous divine emperor, the new divine phoenix. Based on the Overlord and Young Lord status, it was impossible for them to pay attention to these. Qinggu was jealous and twisted, as her eyes were filled with a thick black mist. Shut up! A cold and indifferent voice interrupted Qingji's rage and hatred. She suddenly met Zhu Wu Xian's eyes. She shuddered when she was stared at by those deep, dark, and frosty eyes. Zhu Wuxin said indifferently, "This young lord's matters are not for you to criticize. It's..." Qinggu's crossed the line. Qingji's face paled as she knelt down. The dignity of a princess just now had vanished in an instant. Yiqing Luo was a little curious. Logically speaking, the princess of the Illusion Clan should be the person with the highest status in the Illusion Clan. Young Master Zhu Wuxin, what was going on? After Zhu Wu Xian warned the pigeon, he looked towards Yiqing Luo. His cold and stern face softened a little. His deep black pupils, which were fixated on Yiqing Luo, were also tainted with a peculiar glint. I said, I won't do anything to hurt you. I also won't share your burden. His voice was a little soft, so soft that only the two of them could hear him. His fingers curled up slightly, as his fiery red robe floated with the wind. But I must take revenge for the Illusion Clan. I understand you very well. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly. Her emotions were indifferent, unable to tell whether she was happy or angry. She said very calmly, "This is just like how my mother used her life to seal Huang Wuyo and used her life in exchange for mine, to avenge my mother's death. I wonder how Huang Wuyo will deal with me once the seal on Huang Wuyo is released." Chapter 52:15. Even if it's to fulfill my mother's dying wish, I will absolutely not allow any of you to undo Huang Wuyo's seal. As she said that pair of narrow eyes flashed past a resolute and sharp cold glint. So, you want to undo Huang Wuyo's seal? She kept her smile as her fingertips moved slightly and an enchanting red glow emerged from the glower flame fan. She placed the glower flame fan horizontally in front of her as she said word by word, "Then, you have to get past me first." Zhu Wu Xian's body trembled slightly. His black eyes, which were like surging waves, looked deeply at the young girl. His thin lips moved slightly. "You really want to force me to make a choice?" If one listened carefully, one would be able to hear the trembling in his voice. Yiqing Luo's expression didn't have much change. As compared to Zhu Wu Xian's inner conflict, Yiqing Luo appeared very calm. "I'm not forcing you to make a choice. But right from the start, our fate has already been decided." Yiqing Luo replied calmly. "The feud between the country and family is more important than feelings." Zhu Wu Xian went silent. After some time, he scoffed as his thin lips curled into a ridiculing arc. "You're really considerate." Zhu Wu Xian couldn't tell what he was feeling. Yiqing Luo's words were standing on his side, trying her best to soothe the uneasiness in his heart. Just hope. Was he going to be enemies with her? Just hope. The both of them would never be able to stand on the same parallel line. Their fate. Were they really destined to be enemies? Zhu Wu Xen stared deeply at the young lady's gorgeous face as his 5 fingers by his side clenched into a fist. She didn't open her mouth to interrupt Zhu Wu Xian's deep thoughts. Zhu Wu Xian was carrying too much on his shoulders. On one side was his stubborn feelings. On the other side was his clan's hatred, no matter how unwilling she was to admit it. Huang Wuyo was her father, that was a fact. To Zhu Wu Xian, she was considered as the daughter of his enemy. It wasn't that she wanted to make any decision for Zhu Wu Xian. It wasn't that she wanted to force Zhu Wu Xian to make a choice. But even if Zhu Wu Xian's stubborn feelings towards her had surpassed the feud between the country and family, but Yiqing Luo was certain. Every day, he would live in remorse and self-blame for the Illusion clan. One day, he would blame her. Moreover, she could not respond to Zhu Wu Xian's feelings. It was better to make a choice at this moment. Feelings were secondary. The most important thing was to bear the responsibility that he truly shouldered. Pushing Zhu Wu Xian to become her enemy could perhaps be said to be extremely stupid. He was looking for trouble for himself. But in her heart, Zhu Wu Xian could be considered a friend that she acknowledged. If not for the joke of fate between them, if not for Zhu Wuxin's obsession with her, perhaps they could also become close friends. However, there was no maybe in everything. Young master, Qing Ji's anxious voice broke the tension between the two of them. We need to break this formation as soon as possible and cast the illusion curse on revered Carefree. After being warned by Zhu Wuxin just now, Qingge spoke very carefully. Young master, don't forget why we're here. This is our illusory tribe's only chance. He had missed this one. The illusory tribe's blood feud could no longer be appeased. Zhu Wu Xen clenched his fists tightly as the muscles on his body tensed up. Young master, I absolutely cannot watch you. Regret in the future. A cold and hard voice rang from the illusory tribe's group. Chapter 52:16. Following that, she saw that man dressed in a black robe, embroidered with a huge illusory clan totem, charging towards Yiqing Luo. That person had a lot of momentum. The longsword swept past with a biting, cold, killing intent. Even if young master reprimands this subordinate will still do the same. That voice carried a taut, austere, and firm determination. In front of Yiqing Luo, a sharp silver light flashed past. She dodged to one side. The devouring flame fan on his fingertip quickly spread out, shooting out a ray of profound light. The black light was like a phantom, blocking the man's attack. She quickly leaped into the air and steadied herself. The man's sword pressed down again. All of this happened in an instant. Phantom 3. Zhu Wuxin's expression froze. His eyes were filled with frost as he spat out 2 words coldly. That person who rushed towards Yiqing Luo and crossed hands with her. It was the secret chamber which Yiqing Luo had previously stayed in, which was also the secret base of the secluded palace in the God Realm. He had seen him before, the man called Huan 3. They were Qing Ji's people from the illusion race. Young master, Huan San is right. He's just trying to wake you up. Another woman rushed forward and blocked Zhu Wu Xian's path. Young master, if you can't bear to do it, then let Huan 3 do it. Think about our illusion clan. Think about how we were massacred 10,000 years ago. Yiqing Luo remembered that the lady was called Huan Luo, Qing Ji's personal maid. At this moment, Huan Luo had a fearless expression on his face. Today is the illusion tribe's only chance for revenge. I hope young master can reconsider. Get lost. Zhu Wu Xian's eyes were dark and ruthless. His usually cold and emotionless face was now filled with killing intent. He seemed to be resisting the urge to snap Huan Luo's neck. Huan Luo took a deep breath and suppressed the fear in her heart. She stubbornly refused to give way. In this short period of time, suddenly there was a loud bang. The heavy object landed on the stone wall, and the sound of it landing on the ground made the two of them look in the direction of the sound. Gravel flew everywhere. The black-clothed man was lying on the ground. His originally cold and unyielding aura also weakened a lot. He lay on the ground and moved his hands. However, his entire body was in pain, and he couldn't move at all. Phantom 3. Huan Luo cried out in alarm. Her tone was filled with disbelief. We heard someone being flung away. Huan Luo had thought that Feng Qing Luo, who had seduced their young master's soul, had been subdued by Huan San. But he never thought that the person who would be sent flying would be Huan 3. Moreover, Huan 3's injuries weren't light. She immediately turned around and flew toward Huan 3. Zhu Wuxin saw clearly that it was Huan 3. She couldn't tell if she was relieved or if she felt her heart tighten. His face, which was as cold as cast, did not show the slightest emotion. A man who was never good at expressing his emotions. At this moment, the tumbling thoughts in his heart had already made his mind a mess, and he had no energy to think. His cold black eyes looked towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. He watched as the girl's skirt fluttered in the air like a peach blossom. They watched as the girl slowly closed the glowing flame fan and stood at the entrance of the cave, looking at them expressionlessly. There was not a hint of reluctance in her long and narrow eyes. That woman was really heartless. Zhu Wu Xian slowly walked towards Yi Qing Luo. The flame robe fluttered as he walked. He walked step by step until he was right in front of Yi Qing Luo. The group of people from the Illusion clan looked at Zhu Wu Xian anxiously. They totally couldn't guess what their young master wanted to do. Chapter 52:17. Yi Qing Luo looked at Zhu Wu Xian expressionlessly as he walked towards her. After that, she watched him standing in front of her. Her pink lips rose. Young Patriarch Zhu, are you going to take action personally? Yi Qing Luo, I really don't want to become like this with you. His voice was filled with sorrow. Yi Qing Luo smiled. Our fate is like this. You have your responsibilities, and I have mine. She said it in an open-minded manner, as though she had long expected this ending. Zhu Wu Xian's gaze stared deeply at her as he slowly shook his head. No. If it was DMO Xian, you definitely wouldn't be so calm. If it was DMO Xian, how could Yi Qing Luo possibly stand on the opposite side of DMO Xian? If it was DMO Xian, how could Yi Qing Luo possibly have such an indifferent attitude? After Chu Wuxin said these words, Chu Wuxin's eyes widened. That calm and indifferent young lady's eyes rippled slightly. The smile on her lips vanished as she met Zhu Wu Xian's gaze. Her look made Zhu Wu Xian lower his eyes as he burst out laughing. Indeed so. Yes. His words had just opened his mouth. On that side, a young lady's clear voice was heard. Yi Qing Luo met Zhu Wu Xian's gaze and had no intention to avoid it. If it was Xian standing in your position, I indeed cannot do it. To let him choose national hatred and family enmity. Yi Qing Luo tilted her head as she smiled calmly. Call me selfish or heartless. To me, he is mine, so he should be with me. Of course, she could not possibly force DMO Xian to give up the responsibility he was carrying for her. She would try her best to think of a compromise. When Zhu Wu Xian heard that, a disappointed look flashed past his eyes. His thin lips twitched in self-ridicule. He obviously knew the outcome long ago, but he had to hear it from Yi Qing Luo's own mouth. So what if he heard it from her own mouth? He still wasn't able to give up. Zhu Wu Xian, the young lady opposite him, had a clear voice, and her tone was very indifferent. Calling his name, there wasn't much fluctuation in her emotions. You are you. Xian is Xian. You don't have to compare yourself with Xian, she continued. Although it's cruel, I still want to tell you that you and Xian mean different things to me. So there's nothing to compare. He is the man I love, the future husband I have decided on. So, no matter what, I will not stand on the opposite side of Xian. Zhu Wuxin laughed again. He had always been indifferent, but this laugh was so deep that it made people's hair stand on end. You're really cruel. His voice was low and hoarse, full of ridicule and chilliness, telling me about your feelings for DMO Xian in front of me. Do you think I don't have any feelings and don't know how to be jealous? Not really. Yi Qing Luo's tone was distant. I'm just stating the facts, of course. I also want you to dispel your obsession with me. Zhu Wuxin raised his eyebrows slightly, and the flames on his robe fluttered. A gust of warm wind headed towards Yi Qing Luo's face. He wasn't aggressive at all, but when that warm wind approached Yi Qing Luo's face, it was merely a finger's distance away. Suddenly, it collided with a beam of red light. Two beams of profound light, after they collided in midair, rippled a shallow, profound wave. It also blocked off Zhu Wuxin's warm wind. Zhu Wuxin fixed his eyes on Yi Qing Luo, who didn't move at all, as he suddenly laughed. Looks like you indeed have your guard up against me. Chapter 52:18. After all, I've been tricked a few times. How could I possibly not learn? Yi Qing Luo gave a fake smile as her pink lips twitched as she looked expressionlessly in front of her. The visible warm wind, profound wave dissipated in the air. Faintly, she could smell a faint medicinal fragrance in the air. The same trick young Patriarch Chu has played it a little too many times. She smiled. Don't tell me young Patriarch Chu thinks that after you've grasped my trust towards you, you can do whatever you want. Zhu Wuxian remained silent, not saying a single word, looking at the young lady's sweet smile, but her eyes and brows were filled with a tinge of coldness. Especially that pair of slightly curved eyes, there wasn't a single bit of emotion, as though she was looking at a stranger. That kind of alienation, that kind of coldness. He was very clear that his earlier actions had already angered Yi Qing Luo. But if he could do it again, he would still do it. To make Yi Qing Luo lose consciousness temporarily. He would make use of this opportunity to settle the clan extermination feud with Huang Wuyo 10,000 years ago. By then, it wouldn't be too late for him to help Yi Qing Luo and Fengge take revenge. That was what he thought, and so he did it. But he had not expected that the current Yi Qing Luo was already on guard against him. The medicine had yet to reach Yi Qing Luo. It had already been isolated by Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo. Zhu Wuxian remained silent for a long time. As he slowly opened his mouth, he called out Yi Qing Luo's name. That pair of cold black eyes were burning as he looked at the young lady without blinking. Actually, we don't need to do this. His voice was very calm. In the end, what we're asking for is merely revered worryless life. After our plan is completed, we'll kill revered worryless to fulfill your wish. Isn't that great? No matter what, Huang Wuyo was going to die. This was merely a matter of time. Why do the both of them have to stand on opposing sides? Young Patriarch Chu's idea is good, but Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curved. Her gaze was calm, as her words were sharp. On what basis does young Patriarch Chu think that I will agree to let you help me take revenge? She sneered, as her tone was filled with ridicule. Moreover, whether your illusory clan's plan can be completed is really uncertain. After all, he is revered carefree. After you guys undid Huang Wuyo's seal, you were annihilated by Huang Wuyo. Aren't you just looking for trouble for me? The girl's words were simply an open and frank statement of fact. Zhu Wuxin clenched his fists and said in a deep voice, just because you said that I am your friend. So, young Master Chu, do you think that friends should unconditionally accommodate you? Yi Qing Luo laughed. The enmity of exterminating your clan is an enmity, but the enmity of him ruining my mother's life and ruining my entire life isn't an enmity. Yi Qing Luo smiled as the expression on her face turned silent and solemn. Most importantly, my mother's last wish was to seal Huang Wuyo. Zhu Wuxin fell silent again. He wanted to refute, but on seeing Yi Qing Luo's cold and indifferent eyes, he couldn't even spit out half a word. A long time passed. He gave a low chuckle. You're so heartless, but unfortunately, I'm still unable to bear any resentment towards you. His eyes were slightly cold, as his low and slow voice seemed even more oppressive in the midst of suppression. There was a tinge of bitterness as it seeped into his heart. Then, as you wish, these 4 words were said. Zhu Wuxin's surroundings suddenly swept up 10,000 layers of hurricanes. Chapter 52:19. Like a hot knife through butter, The terrifying burst of profound rays instantly drowned Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo could feel it. He didn't show any mercy. The profound qi waves stirred in the air were like a raging tide, forming wave after wave of huge waves. Yiqing Luo raised her glower flame fan and swiftly entered the battle to retaliate. Just as she wished. Just as she wished. For the sake of family feud, he stood on the opposite side of her. Yiqing Luo wanted to. This wasn't what she wished for. It was fate. Both parties had their own responsibilities. After all, they had to fight in order to achieve their goals. But Yiqing Luo didn't intend to explain any further to Zhu Wu Xian. The two of them exchanged blows swiftly, causing the entire tunnel to be filled with deafening explosions. Gravel flew everywhere as dust billowed. After Qing Ge checked that Huan Xin only had external injuries and it wasn't life-threatening, she handed him over to the Illusion Clan's people to watch over. She raised her eyes, and her sinister, beautiful eyes stared intently at that pink figure in the midst of the exchange. Her beautiful face flickered with a cold light of jealousy. Qing Ji's slender fingers clenched into fists as her heart was filled with resentment. That slut, she actually pretended to be elegant and refined in front of young Lord. What thinking for young Lord? Asking young Lord to pay attention to family feud. How could young Lord forget about the blood feud of the Illusion Clan's extermination? How could he possibly give up? Did she really think that by retreating, young Lord would really feel sorry for her and give up on the blood feud? What a joke. Look, wasn't young Lord going to kill her now? Probably. Fengqing Luo was about to die of regret. She probably didn't expect young Lord to really take action. She really hoped that young Lord would kill her. He wanted her to disappear from this world forever and ever. Do you want Fengqing Luo to disappear? Suddenly, a gloomy and treacherous voice entered his ears. Who? Qing Ji's expression congealed as she looked around alertly. But other than the Illusion Clan's people, there was no one else. Huan Luo saw Qing Ge looking around and hurriedly asked, Princess, what's the matter? Didn't you hear? Qing Ge frowned and was about to ask. But when he saw Huan Luo's worried expression, he didn't have any other strange expressions. The words that were on the tip of his tongue stopped. Could it be that she was the only one who heard that voice just now? Do you want to kill Fengqing Luo with your own hands? That voice rang once again. This time, it replayed clearly in her mind. Qing Ying looked at Huan Luo. When she heard this voice, Huan Luo's expression didn't change. She was still looking at her worriedly. The clear pigeon would be able to confirm. No one but she could hear the voice. She lowered her eyes and hid her thoughts. She shook her head at Huan Luo. I'm fine. I'm just a little worried about the young master. Huan Luo said, Young master's strength is definitely above Sister Feng. Young master can definitely subdue Sister Feng. Unless young master couldn't bear to do it. Of course, Huan Luo did not dare to say this in front of Qing Ge. They had followed the young master for many years. He was very clear about young lord's feelings towards Fengqing Luo. So even now, they didn't choose to surround Fengqing Luo. This was not only because he was confident in the young master's strength. Mainly if they made a move. No matter what the ending was, young lord would definitely blame it on them. Young lord's wrath was something they couldn't afford. Qing Ge casually replied with a few sentences. She then looked at the battle arena and fell silent.